Michael Carter thought he was walking into an ordinary blind date. What he found instead was a woman who knew his deepest secret, one he didn't even know existed. "You don't remember me, do you?" Rachel's words hung in the air like a guillotine. In that moment, 46 years of carefully constructed life began to crumble. A forgotten summer, a hidden pregnancy. A son, now 28, who grew up without a father who never knew he was one. This is the story of how one dinner destroyed everything Michael thought he knew about his past, his present, and what it truly means to be a father. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it touches your heart, hit that like button. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The bistro was the kind of place that tried too hard to be intimate. Exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs hanging from black cords, tables positioned just close enough that you could hear fragments of other people's conversations, but not close enough to feel like you were part of them. Michael Carter sat at table 12, a corner spot that offered a view of both the entrance and the street beyond the tall windows. He'd arrived 15 minutes early, a habit born from years of client meetings where punctuality signaled competence. His phone sat face down on the white tablecloth beside a sweating glass of water. He'd already checked it 4 times in the past 10 minutes, not because he expected any urgent messages, but because doing nothing felt worse than doing something, even something pointless. At 46, Michael had mastered the art of staying busy. His calendar was a Tetris game of client consultations, portfolio reviews, market analysis sessions, and his son Danny's basketball practices, debate team meetings, and the occasional parent-teacher conference. There was always something that needed his attention, something that required him to be somewhere, to be someone. That was how he liked it. Needed it, maybe. The blind date had been his sister Sarah's idea. Not her first attempt, but certainly her most persistent. "You can't hide behind spreadsheets forever, Mike," she'd said 3 weeks ago, cornering him at their mother's birthday dinner. "Danny's going to college in 2 years, then what? You going to sit in that house alone, calculating compound interest for fun?" "I don't calculate it for fun. I calculate it professionally." "You know what I mean." Sarah had that look, the one she'd perfected over 52 years of being his older sister, equal parts affection and exasperation. "Rachel's great. She's smart, she's kind, she's been through her own stuff, so she gets it. Just coffee, just conversation. What's the worst that could happen?" Michael had wanted to provide a detailed list of potential worst-case scenarios, ranked by probability and emotional impact. Instead, he'd said yes because Sarah's look had shifted from exasperation to something sadder, something that suggested she worried about him in ways he didn't want to examine too closely. So here he was, in a bistro called The Cornerstone, waiting for a woman named Rachel Moore, about whom he knew exactly 3 things. She was 44, she worked in education, and Sarah thought they'd really connect. The door opened, bringing with it a gust of October evening and a woman who paused just inside the entrance, scanning the tables. Michael recognized her from the photo Sarah had shown him. Dark hair cut to shoulder length, olive skin, dressed simply in dark jeans and a gray sweater. But the photo hadn't captured the way she carried herself, a kind of careful composure that seemed both natural and practiced. Their eyes met. Michael raised his hand in a small wave, the universal gesture of, "I'm your blind date, please don't turn around and leave." But Rachel didn't move like someone meeting a stranger. She didn't have that moment of calibration, that split-second assessment everyone does when first seeing someone they know only through description. Instead, she walked toward him with the steady gait of someone who'd already decided something, though what that something was, Michael couldn't begin to guess. "Michael," she said when she reached the table. Not a question, a confirmation. He stood, suddenly aware of his height, his slightly rumpled dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, the fact that he'd forgotten to get a haircut this month. "Rachel, it's nice to meet you." "Is it?" The question came out softer than the words suggested, almost curious. Michael felt the first stirring of unease like a missed step in the dark. Yes? I think so. Should I not think so?" Something flickered across her face, amusement maybe, or recognition of absurdity. "Sorry, that was strange. It's nice to meet you too." She sat down, and Michael followed suit, grateful for the structure of chairs and tables, the script of restaurant interactions. A waiter appeared, young, efficient, reciting specials with practiced enthusiasm. Michael ordered a beer he didn't particularly want. Rachel asked for red wine. When the waiter left, silence settled over them like dust. "So," Michael began, reaching for the standard opening gambits of first dates. "Sarah tells me you work in education?" "I'm a high school counselor." Rachel's hands rested on the table, fingers interlaced. No fidgeting, no nervous energy. "Oak Ridge High. I've been there about 12 years now." "That must be intense." "Teenagers are basically emotional hurricanes, at least according to my experience with one of them." "You have a son." Again, not quite a question. "Danny, he's 16, junior year, which apparently is the year that determines his entire future, or so he's been informed by every adult in his life, including me, regrettably." Michael heard himself talking too fast, filling space with words. "Basketball, debate team, thinks he wants to study engineering, but also maybe law, which I've tried to explain are different things, but he insists he can do both." "Sounds like a good kid." "He is. He's great." Michael took a sip of the beer that had appeared without him noticing. "What about you? Sarah mentioned you have a son too." The silence that followed lasted perhaps 3 seconds, but those seconds stretched and thinned like taffy. Rachel's expression didn't change exactly, but something behind it did, a gate closing or a decision made. "I do," she said finally. "Liam, he's 28. Michael did the math automatically. She would have been 16 when she had him. Young, very young. He scrambled for something to say that wasn't patronizing or pitying or any of the other ways people reacted to young motherhood. 28, well, you must have been quite young." "I was." The waiter returned, asking about appetizers. Michael ordered something he didn't look at on the menu. Rachel waved the offer away. When they were alone again, the silence felt different, heavier with things unsaid. "Look," Michael tried again, "if this is weird, or if you're not feeling it, we can—" "Do you remember the summer of 1995? Rachel interrupted, her voice still calm, still measured, but with something underneath now, something that made Michael's stomach tighten. 1995? I mean, vaguely. That would have been— I'd have just graduated high school. I was working construction that summer before college started in the fall. The memories came in fragments, heat, sawdust, the weight of lumber on his shoulders, parties at the lake, the desperate feeling that childhood was ending and something unknown was beginning. "Crystal Lake," Rachel said. "There was a group of kids who worked at the marina. You helped build the new dock." Michael frowned, reaching back through nearly 3 decades of accumulated experience and forgotten moments. Crystal Lake, the marina. There had been other kids, yes, local kids who knew each other from school, who made the summer workers feel like outsiders, until a few weeks in when everyone was just kids sweating in the sun and planning where to drink stolen beer on Friday nights. "I remember the lake," he said slowly. "I remember the work. I remember it being the last summer before everything changed." "Do you remember me?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Michael looked at her, really looked, trying to find in this composed woman in her 40s some echo of a girl from 28 years ago. But memory was unreliable, especially memory washed in the golden haze of nostalgia and youth. He wanted to say yes, felt the pressure to say yes, but honesty won out. "I'm sorry, I don't. There were a lot of people that summer, and it was so long ago, and I'm terrible with names even now." He trailed off because Rachel was nodding, as if this was exactly the answer she'd expected, the answer she'd perhaps needed to confirm something. "That's okay," she said, and there was something almost kind in her tone, the way someone might speak to a person about to receive difficult news. "It was a long time ago. You were 18, I was 16. We spent maybe 6 weeks knowing each other before you left for Northwestern." Northwestern. Michael hadn't thought about his freshman year in years, the overwhelming bigness of it, leaving the small town where everyone knew him for a city where he was nobody, the excitement and terror of reinvention. 6 weeks, he repeated, trying to find the memory, to pull some face or moment from the fog. There had been girls that summer, hadn't there? Flirtations at bonfires, stolen kisses that tasted like beer and possibility, the desperate intensity of teenage romance that felt eternal in the moment and evaporated in the August heat. You really don't remember. Not accusatory, just observational. Rachel, I'm sorry, what is this about? We dated, she said simply. If you can call what teenagers do dating. We met the first week you started working. I was helping my uncle at the marina office. You came in to get your schedule and complained about having to wear a safety vest because it made you look like a traffic cone. Something flickered. A girl laughing, sunlight through windows, the embarrassment of being mocked and the pleasure of making her laugh. But the image was incomplete, like a photograph with half the detail washed away. You took me to the movies, Rachel continued, her voice steady, as if reciting facts from a script she'd memorized long ago. That action movie with the bus that couldn't slow down. I thought it was stupid, but you loved it. We went to the lake parties. You taught me to skip stones, even though I was terrible at it. We'd sneak off from the group and just talk. You told me about wanting to study business, about getting out of small towns and making something of yourself. And what did you tell me? Michael asked, his throat tight. That I wanted to be a teacher, that I wanted to travel, that I felt trapped by everyone's expectations of who I was supposed to be. She smiled faintly. Typical teenage stuff. We thought we were so deep. The memories were coming now, hazy but present. A girl with darker hair then, longer, pulled back in a ponytail. Lying on the dock after sunset, feet dangling in water that held the day's warmth. The way she'd looked at him like he was someone worth listening to, like his half-formed dreams weren't ridiculous. I remember, Michael said quietly. Not everything, not clearly, but I remember you. Some version of you. Of us. It was almost 30 years ago. I wouldn't expect you to remember everything. Rachel picked up her wine glass, took a small sip. I wouldn't expect you to remember much at all, honestly. It was a summer thing. You were leaving for college. We knew it had an expiration date. So what happened? How did it end? The question felt important suddenly, like knowing the ending might explain why they were sitting here now. It didn't, not really. You left for Northwestern in late August. We said we'd keep in touch. You called a few times the first couple weeks. Then school got busy, you got busy, and the calls stopped. I never heard from you again. The shame hit Michael like a wave. How many times had he done that? How many connections had he let drift away because maintaining them required effort? He'd been too self-absorbed or too busy to give. Rachel, I'm sorry. That must have been... It's okay, she interrupted. Like I said, we were kids. You had a whole new life starting. I was just someone from a summer job. It made sense that you moved on. But you didn't move on. The realization settled over Michael like a weight. That's why we're here, isn't it? Sarah didn't just randomly set us up. She knew we had history. No, Rachel said, and there was the first crack in her composure, the first hint of something raw beneath the calm. Sarah doesn't know. Nobody knows except my family, and now you. Nobody knows what? Rachel set down her wine glass with careful precision. She took a breath, and Michael watched her shoulders rise and fall, watched her gather something, courage maybe, or resolve. When you left for college, she said, each word measured and deliberate, I was about 3 weeks pregnant. I didn't know it yet. Wouldn't know for another month. And by then you were gone and I was 16 and alone. The restaurant noise, the chatter of other diners, the clinking of silverware, the acoustic guitar playing softly over speakers, all of it faded to a distant hum. Michael heard his own heartbeat, felt his hands go cold, felt the ground beneath him turn liquid and uncertain. What? The word came out barely above a whisper. I tried to find you, Rachel continued, and her voice was still steady, but Michael could hear the cost of that steadiness now. I tried to call, but your number was disconnected. You'd probably changed it when you moved into the dorms. I tried to find an address for Northwestern, but I didn't know your dorm, didn't know anything specific. I wrote a letter to the general admissions office asking them to forward it to you. I don't know if you ever got it. I didn't. Michael's mind was racing, trying to process, trying to understand. I never got any letter. I never knew. If I had known, what would you have done? Rachel asked, And it wasn't challenging or bitter, just genuinely curious. You were 18, starting college, building a future. What would you have done with the information that some girl from your summer job was pregnant? I don't know, Michael said honestly, because the truth was he couldn't imagine what his 18-year-old self would have done. That version of him felt like a stranger now, someone whose priorities and capabilities were completely foreign. But I would have done something. I wouldn't have just... I should have known. Well, you didn't. And I was 16 and pregnant and terrified. Rachel's hands were trembling now, the first visible crack in her composure. My parents were furious. Traditional Catholic family, you can imagine how well they took the news. They wanted me to give the baby up for adoption. They had it all planned out. I'd finish the pregnancy quietly, maybe say I was going to stay with an aunt, give birth, sign the papers, and come back and pretend it never happened. But you didn't. No, I don't know why exactly. I was 16 and stupid and had no idea what I was doing, but the idea of just giving him away, pretending he didn't exist... She shook her head. I couldn't do it, so I kept him. My parents barely spoke to me for 2 years. I finished high school through an alternative program, worked whatever jobs would hire a teenage mom, raised Liam in a studio apartment that cost more than I could afford. Michael felt like he was watching this story from outside himself, like it was happening to someone else. And you never tried to contact me again? After he was born? After you decided to keep him? I tried a couple more times that first year. Called your parents' house, got your mother once, told her I was an old friend from Crystal Lake, asked if she had a number for you at school. She said you were very busy and didn't like to be disturbed. Gave me the admissions office number, which I already had. Rachel's smile was sad, tinged with old hurt. I took the hint. You'd moved on. You didn't want reminders of your small-town summer, so I stopped trying. My mother never told me anyone called. The anger was building now, hot and sharp. She never said a word. Would it have mattered if she told you some girl from summer called? Michael wanted to say yes, wanted to insist he would have called back, would have found out, would have been there. But the honest truth was he didn't know. That 18-year-old version of himself had been so focused on the future, on becoming someone different, on leaving behind everything that felt small and limiting. Would he have seen a call from a summer fling as important? Or would he have done exactly what his mother assumed he wanted, moved forward without looking back? There's a son, Michael said, the reality finally penetrating. My son. I have another son. His name is Liam, Rachel said softly. Liam Carter Moore. I gave him your last name even though my parents begged me not to. Felt like, I don't know, felt like the one thing I could give him of you. Carter. Michael's vision was blurring. He has my name. He has your eyes too, your stubborn streak, your way of getting quiet when he's thinking through something complex. Rachel's voice carried both affection and pain. He's smart, Michael. Graduated from state with honors, works as a software engineer now. He's kind, funny, terrible at remembering to call his mother, but always shows up when it matters. He's 28 years old and I've never met him. The words felt like confession and accusation all at once. 28 years. I missed everything. First words, first steps, first day of school, graduations, all of it. Yes. No softening of it, no cushioning the blow. Does he know about me? The question hung between them, maybe the most important question of all. Rachel nodded slowly. He knows he has a father out there somewhere. I told him your name when he was old enough to ask. Told him you'd left for college before I knew I was pregnant, that I'd tried to find you but couldn't. I never made you the villain, Michael. I never told him you abandoned us or didn't care, just that you didn't know. What did he say when you told him? He was 9, asked why I didn't try harder to find you. I told him the truth, that I was young and scared and didn't know how, and that by the time I was old enough to know how, so much time had passed that it felt like opening that door would cause more pain than healing. Rachel's eyes were wet now, but no tears fell. He asked if he could meet you someday. I told him maybe, when he was older, if he still wanted to. And does he? Want to? I don't know. We haven't talked about it in years. He stopped asking after a while. Rachel looked down at her hands. I think he decided it was easier to not need a father than to want one who might not want him back. The words hit like a physical blow. Michael thought of Danny, thought of the casual affection of their relationship, the way his son would grab his shoulder in passing or text him dumb memes or ask his advice on things that ranged from college applications to whether a particular girl might like him. He thought of 16 years of inside jokes and shared dinners and basketball games and homework help and all the tiny, mundane, miraculous moments that made up being someone's father. And somewhere, existing parallel to all of that, was another son. Another entire human being who had his blood, his name, his eyes. Who had grown from infant to child to teenager to man without him. Who had needed things, help with homework, someone to teach him to drive, advice about girls or college or career, and Michael hadn't been there for any of it. Not because he chose not to be, but because he simply didn't know. Why now? His voice cracked. Why are you telling me this now? After 28 years, why tonight? Rachel was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on something beyond Michael's shoulder. When she spoke, her words came slowly, carefully chosen. Because Sarah called me 3 weeks ago. Asked if I'd be willing to meet her brother for a blind date. Sent me your photo, told me a little about you, single dad, financial advisor, lives in Westbrook. And I saw your face and it all came rushing back. The marina, that summer, the phone calls that stopped, the letter that never got answered. She finally looked at him, and her eyes were full of something Michael couldn't quite name. Sorrow, maybe, or regret, or just bone-deep weariness. I could have said no. Should have, probably. But I kept thinking about Liam, about the question he asked when he was 9, and I thought maybe you deserved to know. Maybe he deserved for you to know. Maybe I deserved to stop carrying this alone. Does he know you're here, that you're meeting me? No, I didn't want to get his hopes up, didn't want to promise something I couldn't deliver. Rachel's laugh was hollow. For all I knew, you'd turn out to be married with 5 kids and no interest in complications from your past. Or you'd be angry that I never tried harder to find you. Or you'd want nothing to do with either of us. Or I'd be a 46-year-old single dad sitting in a bistro having my entire understanding of my life shattered, Michael said. Or that. They sat in silence. Around them, the restaurant continued its evening rhythm. Couples on date nights, friends catching up, a birthday celebration happening at a far table with sparklers and off-key singing. Normal life happening to normal people with normal problems. Michael felt removed from all of it, like he'd stepped out of time into some parallel space where nothing was certain anymore. I need to see him, he said finally. Liam, I need to meet him. Michael, I know it's complicated. I know I can't just show up and expect anything, but Rachel, you just told me I have a son I never knew about. A son who's been alive for 28 years, who's lived an entire life, and I wasn't there for any of it. His hands were shaking. I need to at least try. I need him to know that I didn't know, that if I'd known, I would have been there. I need to... Stop. Rachel's voice was firm, but not unkind. I get it. I understand the impulse to fix it, to make it right somehow. But this isn't about what you need, Michael. It's about what's best for Liam. The words stung because they were true. Michael forced himself to breathe, to think past the panic and guilt and desperate need to do something. Anything. You're right, he managed. I'm sorry, I don't know how to process this. I know, I've had almost 3 decades to process it. You've had about 10 minutes. How do we do this? What happens next? Rachel was quiet, considering. The waiter appeared again, asking if they wanted to order food. Rachel sent him away with a polite shake of her head. When they were alone again, she leaned forward slightly, her voice low and serious. I need to talk to Liam first, she said. Tell him what I did, who I met with tonight. Give him the choice of whether he wants to meet you. It has to be his decision, Michael. Not mine, not yours. His. And if he says no? The possibility hung there, terrible and real. A son he'd just learned existed, potentially lost before he'd even had a chance to know him. Then you respect that, Rachel said. You respect that he's an adult who gets to decide who's in his life. You respect that he's functioned fine for 28 years without you. and might not need or want you now. It was the right answer, the only ethical answer, but it felt like swallowing broken glass. Okay, yes, of course, it's his choice. I'll talk to him this weekend. Give him a few days to think about it. If, and it's a big if, he agrees, we can arrange something, maybe coffee, somewhere public, something low pressure. Michael nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Rachel reached into her purse, pulled out her phone. I should go. This is a lot for both of us. Wait. Michael grabbed his own phone, fumbled it open. Can I have your number so you can let me know what he says? She hesitated, and in that hesitation, Michael saw her weighing it, the risk of letting him back in, of opening a door that had been closed for so long. But finally she nodded, and they exchanged numbers with the awkward formality of business associates rather than people who'd just upended each other's lives. Rachel stood, slipping her phone back into her purse. I meant what I said before. I never made you the villain in this story, Michael. I told Liam the truth, that we were kids, that you didn't know, that life just happened the way it happened. I don't blame you for leaving or for not knowing. I don't even blame you for not trying harder to stay in touch, because we were 18 and 16 and that's just what happens at that age. But, Michael could hear the unspoken word, but I did raise our son alone. I did struggle through years of barely making it, of working multiple jobs and trying to be enough for him when I was barely more than a kid myself. And you got to go to college, build a career, have a life uninterrupted by the consequences of that summer. Her voice wasn't bitter, just honest. So while I don't blame you, I also can't pretend it was equal. The not knowing came at a cost, but that cost was paid entirely by me and Liam. Michael stood too, feeling the weight of her words, the justice in them. I know, and I'm sorry for all of it. For not knowing, for not being there, for not sharing that cost. I can't change the past, but if Liam's willing, I'd like to try to be part of the future. We'll see. Rachel offered a small, sad smile. Goodbye, Michael. Goodbye. He watched her walk through the restaurant, out the door, disappearing into the October evening. Then he sat back down, picked up his beer, and found he couldn't drink it. His hands were shaking too hard. The waiter returned, concern creasing his young face. Sir? Are you all right? Can I get you anything? No, thank you. I just need... Michael trailed off, unsure what he needed. The check, maybe. To leave. To call someone. To wake up from whatever surreal nightmare this had become. I'll just bring the check then, the waiter said gently, and disappeared. Michael pulled out his phone, stared at the new contact, Rachel Moore. Below it, his recent calls showed 3 missed calls from Danny, probably wondering where he was, when he'd be home. His son. His 16-year-old son who he'd raised, who he knew everything about, whose childhood he'd been present for every moment of. And somewhere in this same city, there was another young man, 28 years old, named Liam Carter Moore, who had Michael's eyes and his last name and possibly his stubborn streak, who was smart and kind and terrible at calling his mother, who'd grown up wondering about a father who didn't know he existed. Michael's vision blurred with tears he didn't try to stop. In one evening, one conversation, his entire understanding of his life had been rewritten. The narrative he'd carried for decades of being a man who'd made careful choices, who'd built a stable life, who was a good father, had shattered. Because the truth was, he'd been a father to 2 sons, but he'd only known about one. The check came. Michael paid it without looking at the amount, left a tip he didn't calculate, and walked out into the October night feeling like a stranger in his own life. His phone buzzed. Danny. Dad, where are you? You said you'd be home by 9. Michael looked at the message, at this evidence of the life that was waiting for him, the house in Westbrook, the son who needed him home, the normal evening routine of discussing homework and making plans for the weekend. He could go back to that life, could walk through his front door and answer Danny's questions about the date with vague pleasantries, could go to bed and wake up tomorrow and go to work and maintain the comfortable fiction that tonight had been just another awkward blind date, nothing more. But he'd know. He'd know about Liam. He'd know about Rachel's struggle, about the letter that never reached him, about his mother's casual dismissal of a phone call that might have changed everything. He'd know that somewhere in this city was a young man who carried half his DNA, who'd lived an entire life in parallel to his own, who might or might not want anything to do with him. Michael texted back, "On my way home. We need to talk." Because this wasn't something he could carry alone. Danny deserved to know he had a brother. Sarah deserved to know what her blind date setup had actually revealed. Michael's mother, he didn't know what she deserved, but she was going to get some difficult questions. The drive home passed in a blur of streetlights and stop signs. Michael's mind wouldn't stop racing, questions upon questions with no answers. What did Liam look like? Did he have Michael's height, his tendency toward anxiety, his love of strategy games? What did he do in his free time? Did he have Rachel's composure, her strength, her careful way of choosing words? And beneath all those questions, one thought kept circling back. He'd missed it, all of it. The first time Liam smiled, the first word he spoke, the first day of school, learning to ride a bike, to swim, to read, every birthday, every milestone, every moment of growth and change and becoming. 28 years of a life lived completely without him. The grief hit in waves, not just for what he'd lost, but for what Liam had lost. Every kid deserved to have a father who showed up, who was present, who loved them intentionally. And Liam had gotten none of that from Michael, through no fault of his own. He'd gotten Rachel's fierce love and determination, yes, but he'd also gotten the absence where a father should have been. Michael pulled into his driveway, sat in the car with the engine off, trying to compose himself. The front door opened and Danny appeared, backlit by the hallway light, tall and gangly in basketball shorts and a hoodie. "Dad, you okay?" No, Michael thought. Nothing was okay. Everything had changed. His entire understanding of his life had been demolished. But what he said was, "Come sit with me for a minute." Danny loped over, folding his teenage frame into the passenger seat with the unconscious grace of the young. "How was the date? Was she weird?" "Sarah's pics are usually weird." "She wasn't weird," Michael said. "She was—" "Danny, something happened tonight, something important, and I need to tell you about it, but I don't know how to tell you in a way that makes sense." His son's expression shifted from casual curiosity to concern. "Dad, you're kind of scaring me." "I'm scaring myself a little bit too." Michael took a breath, tried to find words adequate to the enormity of what he was about to say. "The woman I met tonight, Rachel, she and I dated briefly the summer before I went to college. Just a summer thing, nothing serious, or so I thought. After I left for school, we lost touch." "Okay. What I didn't know, what I just found out tonight, is that when I left, she was pregnant. With my child. With my son." Danny blinked. "What?" "I have another son," Michael said, and saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "His name is Liam. He's 28 years old, and until tonight I had no idea he existed." The silence that followed was vast and complicated. Michael watched emotions play across his son's face. Confusion, disbelief, something that might have been hurt, or might have been anger. "You have another kid," Danny said finally. "A whole other kid who's like an adult." "Yes. And you never knew?" "Never. His mother tried to contact me, but I'd already left for college, changed my number, moved on. The letter she sent never reached me. When she tried to call my parents' house, my grandmother apparently didn't pass along the message." "That's—" Danny shook his head. "That's insane. That's like movie plot insane." "I know. So what happens now? Are you going to meet him?" "If he wants to meet me. His mother is going to talk to him, explain what happened, and then it's his choice." Michael looked at his son, this boy he'd raised, and felt the weight of all the conversations they'd never had to have. "Danny, I need you to understand. This doesn't change anything about you and me. You're my son. I've been your dad your whole life. And that doesn't change just because I found out about Liam." "But he's also your son," Danny said quietly. "He's my brother. Half-brother, technically, but yes." "Do I get to meet him? If he wants to meet you, do I get to meet him too?" The question caught Michael off guard. He'd been so focused on his own potential relationship with Liam that he hadn't thought about Danny's stake in this. Yes. I mean, if that's something you want, and something he wants, You'd have to ask him. That's weird, Danny said, but he didn't sound upset, just thoughtful. Like, I've been an only child my whole life, and now suddenly I have this older brother I never knew about. What do you even say to someone in that situation? Hey, our dad didn't know you existed, but surprise, we're related? Despite everything, Michael almost laughed. I don't think there's an etiquette book for this situation. Probably not. Danny was quiet for a moment, staring out the windshield at the dark suburban street. Dad, are you okay? Like, really? Honestly, I don't know. It's a lot. Finding out you missed your child's entire life, that you have a son you never got to know, it's not something you can just process in one evening. No, Danny agreed. I guess it's not. They sat together in the car, father and son, the silence between them comfortable despite the earthquake of new reality. Finally, Danny spoke again, his voice soft. For what it's worth, I think you're a good dad, like, to me. So if he gives you a chance, I bet you'd be good for him too. The simple faith in those words nearly broke Michael. Thank you, buddy. That means more than you know. Come on, Danny said, opening the car door. Let's go inside. You look like you need some really strong coffee, or possibly just to lie down. Both. Possibly at the same time. They walked into the house together, into the familiar warmth and clutter of their daily life. But Michael felt changed, felt like he was seeing it all through new eyes. The framed photos on the walls. Danny through the years, growing from toddler to teen. The calendar on the fridge with its careful notation of games and meets and appointments. The homework scattered across the dining room table, the basketball in the corner, the remote controls fighting for space on the coffee table. This was the life he knew, the life he'd built deliberately and carefully. And somewhere else, parallel to this, another life had been happening. Liam's life. 28 years of moments Michael had no photos of, no memories of, no part in. Could those two lives intersect now? Could he bridge 28 years of absence? Could he be a father to a son who'd already grown up without him? Michael didn't have answers. All he had was Rachel's promise to talk to Liam and the desperate hope that his son, his other son, his unknown son, his son who shared his name and his eyes and possibly his stubborn streak, would be willing to give him a chance. The next days were going to be agony, waiting for Rachel's call, waiting to know if Liam would agree to meet him. But for tonight, Michael had told the truth to the people who mattered most. Danny knew. Tomorrow he'd tell Sarah, would ask her pointed questions about what she'd known about Rachel before setting them up. Tomorrow, he'd call his mother and demand answers about a phone call from nearly 3 decades ago. But tonight, he'd done what he could. He'd learned a truth that shattered his understanding of his own history, and he'd started the work of sharing that truth with the people it affected. Michael made coffee he didn't drink and sat at the kitchen table with his son who did exist in his daily life and tried not to think too hard about the son who didn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever, if Liam chose to keep him at a distance. But the possibility existed now. A door had opened that couldn't be closed, and Michael found himself standing at the threshold of something terrifying and necessary and completely unknown, hoping against hope that he'd be given the chance to step through. The story of how one blind date changed everything is just beginning. What happens when Rachel tells Liam the truth? Will he agree to meet the father who never knew he existed? The weekend stretched before Michael like an endless desert. Friday night, after his conversation with Danny, he'd barely slept, lying in the dark replaying every moment of the dinner with Rachel, every word she'd spoken, every detail about a son he'd never known. Saturday morning, he woke with his phone clutched in his hand, having fallen asleep checking it obsessively for a message that hadn't come. Danny found him at the kitchen table at 7 a.m., staring at cold coffee. Still nothing? His son asked, already knowing the answer. She said she'd talk to him this weekend. It's only been 1 day. Yeah, but it's a pretty big thing to drop on someone. Hey, remember that father you never met? Turns out he wants to meet you now. Danny grabbed the cereal box from the pantry. That's going to take more than 5 minutes to process. Michael knew his son was right, but knowing didn't make the waiting easier. Every hour felt like a week. He tried to distract himself with work. He had a portfolio review to complete for a client, market analysis that needed updating, but the numbers swam before his eyes, meaningless. His entire professional life was built on calculating risk and planning for the future. But how did you plan for something like this? What was the probability that a 28-year-old man would want to meet the father who'd been absent his entire life? What were the projected outcomes of such a meeting? There were no spreadsheets for this, no data models, no historical precedents he could study, just the terrible uncertainty of waiting for another human being to decide if he was worth knowing. Saturday afternoon, Michael finally called Sarah. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright with curiosity. So, how did it go? Rachel's amazing, isn't she? I knew you two would hit it off. Sarah, we need to talk. In person. The brightness dimmed. Mike, what happened? Did you do something weird? Please tell me you didn't spend the whole dinner talking about tax advantage retirement accounts. Can you come over? This isn't a phone conversation. An hour later, Sarah sat in Michael's living room, her expression shifting from concern to shock to something close to anger as he explained everything. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, processing. Let me get this straight, she said finally. I set you up with a woman who had your child almost 30 years ago and never told you? She tried to tell me I was unreachable. And Mom knew someone called asking for you and never mentioned it? Apparently. Sarah stood, paced to the window, paced back. This is insane. This is completely insane. I thought I was setting you up with a nice woman who'd been through a divorce and understood what it was like to raise a kid on your own. I had no idea there was this whole... She gestured helplessly. How did I not know? How did nobody know? Rachel kept it quiet. Her family knew, obviously, but she didn't broadcast it. Why would she? The father was gone, and she was dealing with it. For 28 years, she lived in the same general area and never once ran into you, never saw you around town. I moved away for college, stayed away for work, only moved back to Westbrook 5 years ago, and that's 20 miles from where she lives. It's not that strange that our paths never crossed. Michael rubbed his eyes, exhausted. Sarah, I need you to tell me the truth. When you set this up, did you know anything about my history with her? No, I swear, Mike, I had no idea. A friend at work knows Rachel through some education network, mentioned she was single and great, and I thought... Sarah sat down heavily. I thought I was helping. I thought I was doing a nice thing, getting my workaholic brother to actually go on a date. You were. You did. This isn't your fault. It feels like my fault. I brought this whole thing crashing down on you. No, Michael said firmly. This was already true. You just helped me find out about it. If anything, I should thank you. Sarah looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Thank me? For upending your entire life? For giving me a chance to know my son? If you hadn't set up that date, I might have gone my whole life never knowing he existed. At least now I know. At least now there's a possibility of making it right. If he wants to meet you. If he wants to meet me, Michael agreed. Sarah reached over, squeezed his hand. He will. How could he not? You're one of the good ones, Mike. Once he knows you didn't know, that you would have been there if you'd known. That's a lot of assumptions to make about someone you've never met. I'm making them about you, not him. You're a good father. Look at Danny. He's turning out great, and that's because of you. This Liam, he'll see that. He'll give you a chance. Michael wanted to believe her, but belief felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. Hope was dangerous when disappointment loomed so large. That evening, he called his mother. The conversation was brief and painful. Yes, she remembered a girl calling from Crystal Lake all those years ago. No, she hadn't thought it was important enough to mention. You were starting a new life, Michael. You were so excited about Northwestern, about getting out of this town and making something of yourself. Some girl from a summer job calling seemed like exactly the kind of distraction you didn't need. That wasn't your decision to make, Mom. You were my son. You were 18. Of course it was my decision. Her voice had that edge it got when she was being defensive. How was I supposed to know she was pregnant? She didn't say. She just asked for your number, said she was an old friend. For all I knew, she was some girl with a crush who couldn't let go. And you didn't think to ask me? To let me decide if I wanted to talk to her? Michael, you're being ridiculous. This was almost 30 years ago. I was trying to protect you. You weren't protecting me. You were controlling my life. And because of that choice, a choice you made without my knowledge or consent, I missed my son's entire childhood. The silence on the other end was long and cold. When his mother spoke again, her voice was tight. I did what I thought was best. I'm sorry if you disagree, but I can't change the past. No, Michael said. None of us can. He hung up feeling hollow. The anger would come later, he knew, but right now he just felt tired. Tired of being angry, tired of waiting, tired of the endless loop of thoughts that went nowhere. Sunday passed in the same fog of anxious waiting. Danny tried to distract him with a basketball game on TV, but Michael couldn't focus. His phone sat on the coffee table like a live grenade, simultaneously dangerous and inert. By Sunday evening, he'd almost convinced himself that Rachel had changed her mind, that she'd decided it was too risky to tell Liam, that the whole thing would just fade away into what might have been. Then, at 8:43 p.m., his phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Can you talk? Michael's hands shook as he typed back. Yes. The phone rang seconds later. He answered before the first ring finished. Michael? Rachel's voice sounded tired. I talked to Liam. His heart was pounding so hard he could barely hear over it. And it went about as well as you'd expect when you tell someone that the father they've wondered about their entire life is suddenly available and wants to meet them. Meaning he's processing. He's angry, confused, hurt, curious, all of it at once. He asked a lot of questions I couldn't answer. Why now? Why you? Why did I decide to tell you after all these years? Michael closed his eyes. What did you tell him? The truth, that it was accidental, that your sister set us up not knowing our history, that you were shocked when I told you, that you had no idea I was pregnant, that you asked immediately to meet him. Rachel paused. I also told him that he doesn't owe you anything, that this is entirely his choice, no pressure, no expectations. Of course it's his choice. He needs time, Michael. This is a lot to process. His entire understanding of his life just shifted. The father he thought was just some guy who left before he was born is suddenly real and present and wanting to be involved. I understand. Whatever time he needs, I'll wait. Michael heard how desperate he sounded and hated it. Did he say anything else? About me? About whether he's even considering it? Another pause, longer this time. He asked what you were like, what kind of person you are. I told him what I knew from our conversations, that you're a financial advisor, that you have another son, that you seemed genuinely shocked and devastated when I told you about him. He asked if I thought you were a good person. What did you say? I said I didn't know you well enough to make that judgment, but that the 18-year-old boy I knew that summer was kind and ambitious and treated me well, and that the man I met last week seemed like someone who wanted to do the right thing, even though he was clearly terrified. Something in Michael's chest loosened slightly. Thank you for saying that. I also told him the truth about the hard parts, that you got to go to college and build a career while I was raising him alone, that there's a fundamental inequality in how this all played out, regardless of intent. I won't let him romanticize this, Michael. You don't get to be the hero who swoops in after 28 years. I don't want to be a hero. I just want a chance to know him. I know. But wanting isn't the same as deserving, and deserving isn't the same as getting. He has to want it too. So what happens now? Now we wait. I told him to take whatever time he needs to think about it. When he's ready, he'll let me know. If he decides he wants to meet you, I'll set something up. If he decides he doesn't, you respect that and move on. The possibility of never meeting Liam felt like a fist around Michael's heart. How long do you think he'll need? I don't know. Could be days, could be weeks. Could be he'll decide against it altogether. You have to be prepared for that, Michael. You have to be prepared for him to say no. I know. He didn't know if he could actually handle it, but he knew intellectually that it was a possibility. Okay, I'll call you when I know something. Rachel, wait, can I ask you something? What? What's he like? Liam, you said he's smart and kind and terrible at calling you, but what's he really like? What makes him laugh? What does he care about? What? Michael's voice cracked. What should I know about my son? Rachel was quiet for so long Michael thought she might have hung up. When she spoke, her voice was softer, tinged with the kind of affection that only came from years of love. He's brilliant with computers, always has been, built his first website when he was 12, taught himself to code from library books and YouTube videos. He's quieter than you'd expect from someone so smart, doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room. He listens more than he talks. She paused. He's got your stubbornness, but also this deep capacity for empathy. He volunteers at a coding camp for underprivileged kids every summer, has done it for 5 years now. Says he remembers what it was like to not have resources and wants to give back. Michael felt tears on his face and didn't try to stop them. He's terrible at cooking, lives on takeout and whatever I bring him when I visit. He's loyal to a fault. His best friend from high school moved to Seattle for work, and Liam still flies out there twice a year to visit. He's a night owl, does his best work after midnight, and he's got this laugh. Rachel's voice caught. He's got this laugh that's just pure joy. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it lights up everything around him. He sounds incredible. He is. He's the best thing I ever did, Michael, the best part of my life. And I'm terrified of what happens if you come into it and hurt him. The honest fear in her voice steadied Michael somehow. This wasn't just about him and his guilt and his desperate need to make amends. This was about a real person with a real life, a person who'd been just fine without him and might continue to be fine without him. I can't promise I won't hurt him, Michael said. I can't promise this will work out the way any of us hope, but I can promise I'll try. I'll show up. I'll be honest. I'll put in the work. That's all I can offer. We'll see if it's enough. After they hung up, Michael sat in the dark living room, phone clutched in his hand. Danny had gone to his room hours ago, probably giving his father space to fall apart in private. The house was quiet except for the ambient sounds of suburban night, distant traffic, the hum of the refrigerator, the settling of old wood. Michael thought about Liam somewhere in this same city, processing the same information from a completely different angle. What did it feel like to suddenly have a father available after 28 years of absence? Was it hope or resentment or fear, or all of it tangled together? Did he look at photos of Michael that Rachel might have saved from that summer and try to see himself in them? Did he wonder what might have been different if Michael had known, had been there? The questions were endless and unanswerable. All Michael could do was wait. Monday morning, he went to work because not going seemed worse. His assistant Jennifer noticed immediately that something was off. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, standing in his office doorway with a stack of files. "Are you sick? Should you even be here?" "Just dealing with some personal stuff. I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've been staring at that same spreadsheet for 20 minutes without touching anything. That's not fine. That's catatonic." Michael managed a weak smile. "It's complicated family stuff. I'll be okay." Jennifer, who'd worked with him for 8 years and had achieved a level of frank friendship that transcended professional boundaries, set down the files and crossed her arms. "Family stuff like your kid is in trouble? Or family stuff like you need to take a few days off?" "Family stuff like I just found out I have another son I never knew about, and I'm waiting to hear if he'll even agree to meet me." The words tumbled out before Michael could stop them. Jennifer's eyes went wide. "Holy shit. Yeah. Another son. Like a secret son?" "Not secret to everyone, just to me. His mother and I dated briefly in high school. She got pregnant after I left for college, tried to reach me but couldn't. Raised him alone for 28 years. Michael leaned back in his chair, suddenly exhausted. "I just found out last week. Currently waiting to see if he wants anything to do with me." Jennifer sat down in the chair across from his desk, professional boundaries forgotten. "Michael, that's... wow. That's a lot. How are you even functioning right now?" "I'm not. Clearly. You said it yourself. I'm catatonic." "You need to go home. Take some time. Process this." "There's nothing to process until I hear from him. Might as well be distracted here as going crazy at home." "Okay, but if you're staying, you actually need to work. Staring into space doesn't count." Jennifer's voice softened. "For what it's worth, I think any kid would be lucky to have you as a father. You're one of the most responsible, caring people I know. If this son of yours gives you a chance, you'll be great." "Thanks, Jen. Now seriously, look at this portfolio. The Johnsons are coming in tomorrow and they're going to have questions." Michael forced himself to focus, to engage with the familiar rhythms of his work. Numbers he understood. Risk assessment, portfolio diversification, long-term growth strategies. These were problems with solutions, questions with answers. They were safe and knowable in a way that nothing in his personal life felt right now. The week crawled forward. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each day Michael checked his phone obsessively. Each evening he went home to Danny's careful concern and tried to act normal. By Friday, he'd almost convinced himself it was over, that Liam had decided against meeting him, and Rachel was just trying to find a gentle way to deliver the news. Then Friday afternoon, as he was wrapping up a meeting with a client, his phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "He wants to meet you." Michael's vision actually blurred for a second. He excused himself from the conference room, walked to his office on legs that felt uncertain, and called Rachel with shaking hands. He said yes. Michael's voice was barely above a whisper. He said yes. "Tomorrow, if you're available. Neutral location, something public. I suggested the coffee shop on Maple. Do you know it? The one near the bookstore?" "Yes, I know it." 2:00. I'll bring him, make introductions, then leave you two to talk. He wants me there initially, but not hovering." Rachel paused. "Michael, he's nervous. He's putting on a brave face, but he's terrified. Please be gentle with him." Of course I will." Michael was already mentally rearranging his Saturday, canceling the plans he'd made with Danny, figuring out what to wear, what to say. "Should I bring anything? Photos, or I don't know what the protocol is for meeting your adult son for the first time." "Just bring yourself. Be honest. Don't make promises you can't keep. And Michael, don't expect too much from one meeting. This is just a first step." "I know. Thank you, Rachel, for talking to him, for setting this up, for—" "Don't thank me yet. We don't know how this is going to go." After they hung up, Michael sat very still, trying to absorb the reality. Tomorrow. He was going to meet Liam tomorrow. His son. His 28-year-old son who he'd never seen, never spoken to, never held as a baby or watched grow up. He called Danny, who whooped with excitement. "Dad, that's amazing. Are you freaking out? You sound like you're freaking out." "I'm definitely freaking out. What are you going to say to him?" "I have no idea. How do you condense 28 years of absence into a conversation over coffee?" "You don't, probably. You just start somewhere and see where it goes." Danny paused. "Want me to come for moral support?" The offer touched Michael deeply. "Not this first time. This needs to be just him and me. But thank you, buddy. That means a lot." That night, Michael didn't sleep at all. He lay in bed running through scenarios, imagining conversations, trying to prepare for every possible outcome. What if Liam hated him on sight? What if they had nothing to say to each other? What if the whole thing was awkward and painful and confirmed that some absences were too vast to bridge? Or worse, what if they connected? What if Liam was everything Rachel said and more, and Michael had to confront the full weight of everything he'd missed? Saturday morning arrived with cruel brightness. Michael changed clothes 3 times, settled on jeans and a button-down shirt that hopefully projected trying, but not trying too hard. He arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, ordered a coffee he wouldn't drink, and sat at a table near the window where he could see people arriving. At 1:58, Rachel walked in, and behind her, a young man who looked so much like Michael at that age that it physically hurt. Liam was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair and the same bone structure Michael saw in his own mirror. But he had Rachel's coloring, her dark eyes, and something in the way he moved, a controlled grace that was all his own. He was dressed casually, jeans and a gray sweater, and his expression was carefully neutral as Rachel led him toward Michael's table. Michael stood, his heart hammering so hard he thought everyone in the coffee shop must be able to hear it. "Michael," Rachel said, her voice steady and formal. "This is Liam. Liam, this is Michael Carter." For a moment, neither man moved. They just looked at each other, father and son, strangers who shared DNA and nothing else. Michael saw his own eyes looking back at him, saw the same wariness he felt reflected in Liam's careful expression. "Hi," Michael said finally, his voice rough. Thank you for agreeing to meet me." "Hi." Liam's voice was deeper than Michael expected, steadier. "This is weird." "Incredibly weird," Michael agreed. Rachel looked between them, seemed satisfied that they weren't going to immediately flee or fight, and stepped back. I'm going to get coffee and sit over there. She gestured to a table across the room. You two talk. I'll be right here if you need me. Then she was gone, and Michael and Liam were alone. Two strangers sitting across from each other with 28 years of absence between them. So, Liam said, and Michael heard the slight tremor beneath the attempted casualness. You're my father. Biologically, yes. In every other sense, I have no idea what I am to you. Liam nodded, seeming to appreciate the honesty. Mom said you didn't know. About me. I didn't. I swear to you, Liam, if I had known your mother was pregnant, I would have... Michael stopped, shook his head. Actually, I don't know what I would have done. I was 18 and stupid and probably would have handled it badly, but I would have tried. I would have wanted to be there. But you weren't. No, I wasn't. The acknowledgement sat heavy between them. And I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, doesn't give you back the years I should have been there. But I'm sorry. Liam was quiet, his fingers drumming against the table in a rhythm that seemed unconscious. Michael recognized the gesture. He did the same thing when he was thinking, when he was working through something complex. Mom told me about the summer you two met, Liam said finally. How young you both were. How it ended. I've always known the basic story. That my father was someone she dated briefly who left for college before she knew she was pregnant. But it was always abstract, you know? A story about someone who didn't really exist. And now? Now you're sitting in front of me looking like some future version of what I might look like in 20 years, and it's really fucking weird. Despite everything, Michael almost smiled. Yeah, it really is. Do you want coffee? Liam asked abruptly. You have coffee, but it looks untouched, and I need something to do with my hands. Sure, yeah, whatever you're having. Liam got up, went to the counter, came back with 2 fresh coffees. The brief absence gave Michael a moment to steady himself, to breathe, to try to find some equilibrium in this surreal situation. When Liam sat back down, he seemed slightly more composed. Okay, so, I have questions. A lot of questions, and I need you to be honest with me, even if the answers are ugly or uncomfortable. Can you do that? Yes. Ask me anything. Did you love her? My mom? The question caught Michael off guard. We were 18 and 16. I don't know if what we felt then counts as love in any adult sense, but I cared about her. She was smart and funny and made me feel like I was worth listening to. I thought about her a lot after I left for school, wondered how she was doing. Then life got busy and I moved on, which probably answers your question about the depth of my feelings. Liam nodded, processing. Do you have other kids? Mom said you have a son. Danny, he's 16. Good kid. He was pretty shocked when I told him about you. How'd he take it, finding out he has a secret older brother? Better than I expected, honestly. He wants to meet you if that's something you'd be open to eventually. Maybe. I don't know. This is already a lot. Liam took a sip of his coffee. What do you do? For work? I'm a financial advisor, help people plan for retirement, manage investments, that kind of thing. It's not exciting, but it's stable and I'm good at it. Mom said you went to Northwestern. Yeah, business school. Graduated in 4 years, got a job at a firm in Chicago. Worked my way up. Moved back to this area about 5 years ago when Danny's mother and I split up. She's remarried now, lives in Portland, but we wanted to keep things stable for him, so I stayed local. So you're divorced too? Yeah, it was amicable mostly. We got married too young for the wrong reasons, realized we were better as co-parents than as spouses. We're friendly now, coordinate well with Danny. Michael paused. What about you? Your mom said you're a software engineer? Yeah. Work for a tech company downtown, mostly back-end development. I like the puzzle of it, making systems work efficiently. Liam's fingers were still drumming. I'm not good at the personal stuff. Talking about feelings, processing complicated emotions. I'd rather work through code problems than people problems. I get that. Numbers make more sense than emotions. Exactly. Liam looked directly at Michael for the first time since they'd started talking. So here's the thing I keep coming back to. You missed everything. First steps, first words, first day of school, graduations, all of it. You weren't there when I was sick or scared or needed help with homework. You weren't there for any of it. And I know you didn't know. I know it wasn't your choice, but it still happened. Those years still happened without you. I know. And now you show up wanting to, what? Be my dad? Make up for lost time? I'm 28 years old, Michael. I don't need a father in the way a kid needs a father. I've functioned fine without you for almost 3 decades. The words stung, but they were fair. You're right. I can't be your father in the traditional sense. That ship sailed a long time ago, but maybe I could be... Michael searched for the right word. Maybe I could just be someone in your life. Someone who wants to know you, who cares what happens to you. I don't expect you to call me dad or to need me for anything. I just want a chance to know who you are. Liam was quiet for a long moment. Why? Why does it matter to you now? Because you're my son. Because the second Rachel told me you existed, everything shifted. I can't unknow it. I can't go back to a life where I don't know I have another child out there, and I can't live with myself if I don't at least try to be part of your life in whatever capacity you'll allow. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you just met. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pressure you into anything. I'm just trying to be honest about where I'm at. Liam picked up his coffee, set it down without drinking. I have a lot of anger about this. About growing up without a father, about watching mom struggle alone, about all the times I wondered what you were like, and if you ever thought about the possibility that you might have a kid somewhere. And I know intellectually that it's not your fault, that you didn't know, but the anger doesn't care about intellectual understanding. I don't blame you for being angry. I'm also curious. I've wondered my whole life what my father was like, and here you are, real and present and willing to talk. That curiosity doesn't erase the anger, but it's there alongside it. So where does that leave us? Michael asked. Liam looked out the window, watching people pass on the sidewalk, living their normal Saturday lives with normal Saturday problems. When he looked back at Michael, his expression was complicated, guarded but not entirely closed off. I don't know yet, he said honestly. I don't know what I want from this or what I'm willing to give. I don't know if we can build something from nothing or if the gap is too wide to bridge, but I'm here. I showed up. That's something. That's everything, Michael said. That's more than I had any right to hope for. They sat together in the coffee shop, father and son, strangers trying to find some common ground in the wreckage of missed time. Outside, the autumn afternoon faded toward evening. Across the room, Rachel watched them with an expression Michael couldn't quite read. Tell me something, Liam said suddenly. Something true about yourself that you wouldn't normally share with a stranger. Michael thought about it, about all the careful walls he kept up, the professional persona he maintained. I'm terrified most of the time. Not about specific things, just this general anxiety that I'm going to mess everything up, that I'm not good enough at anything that matters. I manage it, function through it, but it's always there. Liam nodded slowly. I get that. The anxiety, I mean. I have it too. Runs in the family, apparently. What about you? Something true? I resent that I care about this meeting as much as I do. I wanted to not care, to be indifferent, to treat this like some obligation I was getting out of the way. But I do care. I care what you think of me. I care if we connect. I care if this goes well. And I hate that I care because it makes me vulnerable. The honesty cut through all the careful distance they'd been maintaining. Michael felt something shift in his chest, a crack in the wall he'd been holding up. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you're incredible. From what your mother told me, from what I'm seeing now, you're smart and honest and brave enough to show up for something this difficult. I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. You don't, Liam agreed, but thank you for saying it anyway. They talked for another hour, the conversation moving from stilted to slightly easier, though never quite comfortable. They discovered small things in common, a preference for strategy games over action games, a tendency to work late into the night, an inability to remember anyone's birthday, including their own. They skirted around the bigger issues, the harder questions, content for now to just exist in the same space without demanding too much. Eventually, Rachel came over. Sorry to interrupt, but I have plans tonight and need to get going. You guys okay here? Liam looked at Michael, something uncertain in his expression. Yeah, we're okay. I think. Do you want to exchange numbers? Michael asked, trying not to sound too hopeful. No pressure, just if you want to maybe continue the conversation sometime. Liam hesitated, then nodded. Okay, yeah, we can do that. They put each other's numbers in their phones with the awkwardness of people who weren't quite sure what their relationship was supposed to be. When it was done, they all stood, the meeting clearly over. Thank you, Michael said to both of them, for this, for giving me a chance. Don't thank me yet, Liam said, echoing his mother's earlier words. This was just one conversation. We'll see where it goes from here. Fair enough. Rachel and Liam left together, and Michael watched them walk away, mother and son, the unit they'd been for 28 years. He was on the outside of that, might always be on the outside of it, but maybe with time and patience and a lot of difficult conversations, he could find a place somewhere in Liam's life. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't making up for lost time, but it was a beginning, and right now, that was enough. Michael drove home in a daze, his phone sitting in the cup holder like a bomb that might or might not detonate. Liam's number was in there now, a contact labeled simply Liam, because adding son felt presumptuous and leaving it blank felt wrong. The whole drive, Michael replayed every word of their conversation, analyzing tone and body language, trying to determine if it had gone well or poorly or somewhere in the ambiguous middle. Danny was waiting when he walked through the door, practically vibrating with curiosity. Well? How was it? What's he like? Did it go okay? You look kind of shell-shocked. Michael set his keys on the counter, tried to find words adequate to the experience. It was intense. He's incredible, Danny. Smart and honest and so guarded you can practically see the walls. He looks like me, has your grandmother's stubborn streak, and he's angry. Not explosively angry, but there's this core of resentment that he's trying to manage while also being curious about who I am. Did you guys connect at all? Maybe. I don't know. We talked for over an hour, shared phone numbers. He didn't tell me to never contact him again, which I'm counting as a win. Michael collapsed onto the couch. I told him I was proud of him even though I have no right to be. He said thank you anyway. I don't know what any of it means. Danny sat down next to him, a rare moment of physical proximity that Michael's teenage son usually avoided. It means you showed up. That's something. That's what Liam said. Then he's smart. Danny picked at a thread on his basketball shorts. So what happens now? Do you text him? Wait for him to text you? Is there like a rule book for this? No rule book. Rachel said not to push, to let him set the pace. So I guess I wait and hope he reaches out. And if he doesn't? The question Michael had been avoiding. Then I respect his choice and live with the fact that I met my son once and it wasn't enough to bridge 28 years of absence. They sat together in silence, father and son who knew each other, while Michael thought about the other son who was still essentially a stranger. The unfairness of it struck him hard, that Danny had gotten 16 years of Michael's presence, imperfect but consistent, while Liam had gotten nothing through no fault of his own. 3 days passed with no word from Liam. Michael checked his phone obsessively, started typing messages he never sent, drafted and deleted texts that ranged from casual to desperate. Finally, Wednesday evening, as Michael was reviewing a client portfolio and trying not to think about his silent phone, it buzzed. A text from Liam. Hey, still processing everything, not ready to meet again yet, but wanted you to know I'm not ignoring you. Just need time. Michael stared at the message, reading it 5 times, trying to extract every possible meaning from those 32 words. It wasn't a rejection. It was communication, consideration, an acknowledgement that Michael existed and mattered enough to warrant an explanation. He typed back carefully. Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you for letting me know. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, okay. It wasn't much, but it was something. Michael saved the conversation, went back to his work, and found he could actually concentrate for the first time in days. 2 weeks later, another text. Random question, are you good at fixing computers? Mine is doing something weird and Mom suggested I ask you since she said you work with tech stuff at your job. Michael had to laugh at that, at Rachel's transparent attempt to create a connection. I work with financial software, not hardware, but I can take a look. Want to send me a description of what it's doing? What followed was a technical back and forth about processor speeds and memory issues that eventually led to Michael suggesting they meet up so he could actually look at the computer. Liam agreed, with the caveat that they meet at a neutral location, a library where Liam sometimes worked on weekends. Saturday afternoon, Michael found his son in a study room surrounded by code printouts and 3 different monitors. The computer in question was indeed malfunctioning, and Michael spent an hour helping diagnose the problem while they talked around it, about work, about the mundane frustrations of technology, about everything except the elephant in the room. "It's the graphics card," Michael said finally, having run through every diagnostic he knew. "It's failing. You need to replace it." "Great, that's expensive." Liam ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I need this thing functional for a project deadline next week. I could order the part, have it shipped overnight. Install it for you tomorrow if you want." Liam looked at him, something cautious in his expression. "You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to help if I can." A pause, then, "Okay, yeah, that would be good." Sunday evening, Michael showed up at Liam's apartment for the first time, a modest 1-bedroom in a complex near the tech corridor, the kind of place that was functional but not particularly homey. Liam let him in with obvious nervousness, and Michael understood why when he saw the space. It was the apartment of someone who lived alone and didn't particularly care about aesthetics, furniture that was practical rather than comfortable, walls bare of decoration, dishes in the sink suggesting meals eaten quickly and without thought. "Sorry it's a mess," Liam said, clearing papers off the couch. "I wasn't expecting company." "It's fine. Looks like every apartment I had in my 20s. They worked on the computer together, Michael providing guidance while Liam did most of the actual installation. It created an easy intimacy, focusing on a task rather than on each other, and gradually conversation started to flow more naturally. "Mom said you used to build things," Liam said at one point, carefully seating the new graphics card. "That summer you two met. Construction work, built docks, did some roofing, general labor. It was good money for a kid heading to college. Did you like it, the physical work?" "Parts of it. I liked seeing tangible results at the end of the day. You built something that didn't exist before, but I was never going to do it long term. I wanted something that used my mind more than my hands." "I get that. That's why I like coding. You're building things, solving problems, but it's all abstract, all in here." Liam tapped his head. "Your mom said you volunteer teaching kids to code." "Yeah, every summer. There are these kids who are crazy smart but don't have access to computers at home, don't have anyone teaching them this stuff. I remember what that was like." Liam was concentrating on connecting cables, not looking at Michael. "Mom couldn't afford a computer when I was growing up. I learned on public library machines, stayed after school to use the computer lab. Some teacher finally noticed how much time I was spending there and got me an old laptop someone had donated. Changed my life." Michael felt the weight of that story, of all the struggles he hadn't been there to witness or help with. That teacher saw something special in you. "Mr. Harrison. He died a few years ago. I went to his funeral, tried to tell his family what he'd meant to me, but I don't know if they understood." Liam looked up finally. "Do you ever think about that? How random chance completely changes the trajectory of your life. If that teacher hadn't noticed me, if he hadn't cared enough to get me that laptop, I might not be a software engineer now. Might not be anything. You'd be something, maybe something different, but your intelligence and drive, those aren't dependent on any one person or moment. But opportunity is. Talent without opportunity is just potential that never gets realized." Liam turned back to the computer. "You had opportunity. Northwestern, good family, support system. I had talent and a mom who worked herself to exhaustion trying to give me chances she never had. Those aren't the same thing." The observation stung because it was true. "You're right. I had advantages you didn't, and that's not fair, and I'm sorry that your childhood was harder than it should have been. I'm not looking for an apology. I'm just stating facts." Liam powered on the computer, watched the monitors flicker to life. "It works. Good call on the graphics card. Team effort." They packed up the tools, and Michael prepared to leave, but Liam surprised him by offering coffee. They ended up sitting in the small kitchen, drinking mediocre instant coffee and talking about nothing important. Sports neither of them followed religiously, a show they'd both watched, the absurdity of tech company culture. Then, as Michael was getting ready to actually leave, Liam said quietly, "I've been seeing a therapist since Mom told me about you, trying to work through all the complicated feelings about this whole situation." Michael sat back down. "That's good. That's really smart. She asked me what I want from you, from this relationship or whatever we're building, and I couldn't answer. Because part of me wants nothing, wants to keep my life separate and uncomplicated. And part of me wants everything I missed, wants you to somehow make up for 28 years of absence. And I know both those things are impossible." "What did your therapist say?" "That I need to figure out what's actually possible and decide if that's enough. That I can't hold you responsible for not being there when you didn't know. But I can hold you accountable for how you show up now." Liam was gripping his coffee mug tightly. "So I guess what I'm asking is, how are you going to show up? What do you actually want from this?" Michael took a breath, knowing this was important, that his answer mattered. "I want to know you. Not who I imagine you to be or who I wish you were, but who you actually are. I want to be someone you can call when your computer breaks, or when you need advice, or just when you want to talk. I want to be present in whatever capacity you'll allow, without expectation that it looks like a traditional father-son relationship." "What if I can never see you as a father? What if you're always just Michael, some guy who happens to share my DNA?" "Then that's what I am. I don't need a title, Liam. I don't need you to call me dad or to need me in any particular way. I just need you to give me a chance to be part of your life." Liam nodded slowly, processing. "Okay, we can try that, but you need to understand, I have a lot of anger that I'm working through. Sometimes it's going to come out. Sometimes I'm going to resent you for things that aren't your fault. Sometimes I'm going to pull away because this whole thing is overwhelming. I can handle that. Can you? Because I need you to actually mean it, not just say it because it sounds good." Michael met his son's eyes, saw the challenge there, the test. "I'm not perfect. I'm going to mess up, say the wrong thing, push when I should give space. But I'm committed to trying, to showing up even when it's hard, to earning whatever trust you're willing to give me. That's the best I can offer." "Okay." Liam set down his coffee mug. "Then let's try." Over the following weeks, they developed a cautious rhythm. Text exchanges every few days about small things, a problem at work, a funny thing Danny said, a question about some shared interest. Meeting for coffee or lunch every couple of weeks, the conversations gradually becoming less stilted. Michael shared stories about his own life carefully, not wanting to overwhelm but trying to give Liam context for who he was. Liam shared even more carefully, offering pieces of his history like gifts that could be rescinded if Michael proved unworthy of them. Then one afternoon, Liam called instead of texting. Michael almost dropped his phone answering it. "Hey, is this a bad time?" Liam's voice was tight with something Michael couldn't identify. "No, I just finished with a client. What's up?" "I got a job offer in Seattle. Really good position, significant pay increase, working on projects I actually care about." Michael's heart sank even as he tried to keep his voice neutral. "That's great. Congratulations. When would you start?" "That's the thing. They want me in 6 weeks, and I don't know what to do." Liam exhaled sharply. 3 months ago, I would have taken it immediately. Great opportunity, new city, fresh start. But now there's you, and we're just starting to figure this out. And if I move across the country, then you move across the country, Michael interrupted. Liam, you can't make career decisions based on a relationship that's only a few months old. But what if I regret it? What if I leave and we lose whatever momentum we've built? We have phones, we have planes, Seattle isn't another planet. Michael was gripping his desk phone so hard his knuckles were white. If this is the right move for your career, you take it. I'll still be here. We'll figure out how to maintain what we're building across distance. You say that now. I mean it. Liam, I missed your entire childhood because I didn't know you existed. I'm not going to be the reason you miss out on a career opportunity. We'll make it work. There was a long silence, then quietly, I need to think about it. The offer's good for another week. Take the time you need. And Liam, whatever you decide, I'm proud of you for getting the offer. That's huge. Thanks. I'll let you know what I decide. After they hung up, Michael sat staring at his office wall, feeling the universe's cruel sense of irony. He'd just found his son, was just starting to build something tentative and fragile, and now Liam might move 2,000 miles away. It would be the responsible thing to encourage, the selfish thing to mourn. That evening, he told Danny about the job offer. His younger son's reaction was immediate and passionate. He can't leave. You guys just started getting to know each other. It's a good opportunity for him. We can't ask him to turn it down. But Seattle, Dad, that's so far. I know. Michael felt the same panic his son was expressing, but was trying to model the maturity he wanted Danny to develop. But sometimes the people we care about make choices that are right for them even if they're hard for us. We have to support them anyway. That sucks. Yeah, it really does. 3 days later, Liam asked to meet in person. They sat in the same coffee shop where they'd first met, and Michael braced himself for the news. I turned it down, Liam said without preamble. The Seattle job. I told them no. Michael felt relief and concern in equal measure. Why? Because I realized I was running. I've done that before. Whenever things get complicated or emotional, I find a reason to leave, to start over somewhere new. And this whole situation with you is complicated and emotional and uncomfortable. And my first instinct was to run from it, but Liam paused, choosing words carefully. My therapist pointed out that running doesn't actually solve anything. The feelings follow you. The questions don't get answered. And I'm tired of running from hard things. I don't want to be the reason you give up a good opportunity. You're not. This is me choosing to stay and do the hard work of figuring out what kind of relationship we can have. The job was good, but not irreplaceable. There will be other opportunities, but there's only one chance to build something with you, and I'm not ready to walk away from that yet. Michael felt emotion clog his throat. Thank you for giving us a chance. Don't thank me yet. I'm still angry a lot of the time, still resentful, still figuring out how to reconcile the father I imagined with the actual person sitting in front of me. The actual person is probably disappointing compared to the imagined one. In some ways. In other ways, you're better than I expected. Liam fiddled with his coffee cup. You show up. You don't make promises you can't keep. You're honest even when it's uncomfortable. That counts for something. They talked for another hour, and for the first time the conversation felt less like two people carefully navigating a minefield and more like two people genuinely trying to know each other. Liam told stories about college, about the friends he'd made and lost touch with, about projects that had failed spectacularly and others that had succeeded beyond expectation. Michael shared more about his divorce from Danny's mother, about the challenges of single parenting, about his own father's distance and how it had shaped his determination to be present for his own kids. Even though you weren't present for me, Liam observed, not cruelly, but as simple fact. Even though I wasn't present for you, Michael agreed. The irony of that doesn't escape me. I spent 16 years trying to be the father mine wasn't. And meanwhile, I had another son growing up without me at all. Mom never bad-mouthed you. I want you to know that. Even when things were really hard, even when I asked questions about why you left, she never made you the villain. She always said you were young and didn't know, and that it wasn't your fault. Your mother is a better person than I probably deserve. She is pretty great. Liam smiled, the first fully unguarded smile Michael had seen from him. Stubborn as hell, interferes in my life more than I'd like, calls me too often, and then complains I don't call her enough. But yeah, she's the best. I'm glad you had her. Me too. She's the reason I survived childhood, the reason I had any chance at all. Liam's expression grew serious again. I need you to understand something. No matter what relationship we build, she comes first. If there's ever a conflict, if you ever do anything that hurts her, I'm choosing her. Every time. I wouldn't expect anything else. She earned that loyalty. Okay, good. Liam relaxed slightly, because she's nervous about this whole thing. About you being in my life. She's trying to be supportive, but I know she's worried. Worried about what? That you'll hurt me. That you'll make promises you can't keep. That you'll be present for a few months and then drift away when it gets hard or inconvenient. Liam looked directly at Michael. That you'll leave again, basically. Even though rationally she knows you didn't leave the first time, emotionally she's protecting me from that possibility. Michael understood the fear, felt the weight of having to prove himself not just to Liam but to Rachel as well. How do I reassure her? Show her I'm serious about this. Time, mostly. Consistency. Actually being there when you say you will, not just in the beginning but months from now, years from now. Liam paused. And maybe actually talking to her? You two haven't spoken since that first night except about logistics. She might appreciate knowing where your head's at. The suggestion made sense, but also terrified Michael. His relationship with Rachel was complicated. She was the mother of his child, someone he'd hurt unintentionally but deeply, someone whose life he'd irrevocably altered. What did you say to someone in that position? But Liam was right. If he was going to be part of Liam's life, he needed to have some kind of working relationship with Rachel beyond awkward text exchanges about meeting times. That evening, Michael called her. She answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. Michael, is everything okay? Did something happen with Liam? No, everything's fine. I thought we should talk about how things are going, about what he needs, about... Michael faltered. I don't actually know what we should talk about. I just know we should. A pause, then something that might have been a laugh. That's probably the most honest opening to a conversation we've had. Liam mentioned you're nervous about this whole situation, about me being in his life. And I wanted to, I don't know, reassure you maybe? Or at least talk through your concerns. My concerns, Rachel repeated slowly. Okay. Do you want the polite version or the honest version? Honest. Always honest. I'm terrified you're going to break his heart. The words came out in a rush. He's putting himself out there, being vulnerable with you, letting you into his life. And he acts tough, but he's not really. He's been hurt before by people he trusted, and I'm scared you're going to be another one. That you're going to realize being a father to an adult son is harder than you thought, and you're going to fade away. I'm not going to fade away. You say that now, but Michael, you don't know what you're committing to. This isn't some finite thing with a clear endpoint. This is a lifelong relationship that you're starting in the middle. There are going to be hard conversations, complicated situations, times when Liam pulls away or lashes out. Can you actually handle that long term? The question was fair and terrifying. I don't know, Michael admitted. I can't predict the future or guarantee I'll handle everything perfectly, but I can tell you that I'm committed to trying, that I think about him constantly, worry about whether I'm doing this right, want desperately to be someone he can count on. That has to count for something. Wanting isn't the same as doing. No, but it's a start. Michael took a breath. Rachel, I know I can't make up for not being there. I know I can't give back the years you spent raising him alone or erase the difficulty of single parenting or fix anything about the past. All I can do is try to be present now and hope that's enough. What if it's not? What if you try your best and it's still not enough? Then at least we tried. At least Liam will know I wanted to be in his life, that I showed up as much as I could. That's better than never knowing, isn't it? Rachel was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, tinged with something that might have been grief or might have been acceptance. When I found out I was pregnant, I was 16 and terrified and convinced my life was over. Everyone told me to give him up, said I was too young, that I'd regret ruining my future for a baby. But I kept him anyway, and he became everything to me. Every sacrifice, every struggle, every moment of exhaustion. It was worth it because he was mine, and I was his, and we had each other. You did an incredible job. He's amazing. He is. And for 28 years, I've been enough for him. I've been mother and father, cheerleader and disciplinarian, provider and protector. We've been a team. Her voice cracked slightly. And now you're here, and he doesn't just need me anymore. He needs you too, or wants to try needing you. And I'm happy for him. I want him to have a relationship with his father, but I'm also scared you're being replaced, Michael finished quietly. Yes. Which is selfish and small of me, but yes. You're not being replaced. Nobody could replace you, Rachel. You're the one who was there, who raised him, who sacrificed everything. I'm the addition, not the replacement. I know the difference. Do you? Because it's easy to say that now, but what about when he calls you first with good news? What about when he asks for your advice instead of mine? What about when I'm no longer the only parent in his life? Michael heard the vulnerability beneath the challenge, understood that this wasn't really about him at all. Then you'll still be his mother, still be the person who knows him best, who loved him when no one else did. I can't compete with that, Rachel. I don't want to. I just want a place in his life too. They talked for another 30 minutes, working through fears and expectations and boundaries. It wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. By the time they hung up, Michael felt like they'd established something fragile but real, an understanding that they were both invested in Liam's well-being, that they both wanted what was best for him, even when they weren't sure what that looked like. The next weeks brought gradual shifts in the dynamic between Michael and Liam. They started meeting more regularly, the awkwardness slowly diminishing. Liam began sharing more personal things, frustrations at work, concerns about his mother's health, small victories that he wanted someone to celebrate with him. Michael reciprocated, talking about his own struggles, his relationship with Danny, his regrets and hopes. Then one evening, Liam called with a request that caught Michael completely off guard. So there's this work thing, a company dinner for my team, and normally I just skip those because they're awkward and I don't have anyone to bring and it's easier to make excuses. But this one is kind of a big deal. They're announcing promotions and I'm pretty sure I'm getting one. And I was thinking, Liam paused. Would you want to come as my guest? Michael's throat tightened. You want me there? Yeah, I mean, if you're available. If it's not weird, Mom will be there too. She usually comes to these things with me. But I thought maybe it would be good for people to meet you, to know you exist. I'd love to come. When is it? Friday night, kind of fancy, so you'd need to dress up. And you'd have to deal with my coworkers, who are mostly nerds who talk in code puns. I can handle code puns. Okay, good. I'll text you the details. Friday arrived with Michael's anxiety at an all-time high. He changed outfits 3 times, settling finally on a suit that was professional without being too formal. Danny caught him checking his reflection for the 5th time. You look fine, Dad. Stop freaking out. I'm meeting Liam's coworkers. Being introduced as his father, that's not freaking out territory? Okay, maybe a little freaking out is justified. Danny straightened Michael's tie. But seriously, you're going to be great. Just be yourself. Liam asked you to come, which means he wants you there. That's huge. The restaurant was upscale, the kind of place where tech money mixed with old money, and everyone pretended to be comfortable with the wine selection. Michael found Liam near the bar, dressed in a suit that looked expensive and slightly uncomfortable, talking with a group of people around his age. Michael, hey. Liam's face showed relief at seeing him. You made it. Come meet everyone. The introductions were a blur, names Michael immediately forgot, job titles that meant nothing to him, friendly faces that all blended together. But what stuck was the way Liam introduced him. This is Michael Carter, my father. Not my dad, not with any particular warmth or familiarity, but claiming the relationship nonetheless. Michael felt the significance of it, the public acknowledgement that they were connected. Rachel appeared a few minutes later, and the dynamic shifted into something more complex. The 3 of them standing together, 2 parents and their adult son. A family that had never been a family, but was trying to figure out what they could be to each other. Strange, isn't it? Rachel said quietly, as Liam was pulled away to talk to his boss. The 3 of us here together. If you told me 6 months ago this would happen, I wouldn't have believed it. 6 months ago, I didn't know he existed. Now I can't imagine not knowing. He's been good for you, this whole thing. I can see it. You're more, Rachel searched for the word, present, more aware of what matters. He's changed everything, made me reconsider every decision I've made, every priority I've held, in the best way possible. They watched Liam across the room, laughing at something his colleague said, more relaxed than Michael had ever seen him. He looked happy, successful, like someone who'd built a good life despite difficult beginnings. We did okay, didn't we? Rachel said. Between the 2 of us. You weren't there, but I was. And now you're here, and he's got both of us. It's not traditional, but it's ours. He's incredible. That's all you, Rachel. You raised an incredible human being. We'll see what you contribute going forward. The evening progressed with speeches and announcements. When Liam's name was called for a promotion, Michael felt pride swell in his chest. Pride he'd done nothing to earn, but felt nonetheless. He applauded along with everyone else, watched his son accept recognition for work Michael knew nothing about, and felt the strange mix of connection and distance that characterized their entire relationship. Afterward, the three of them ended up at a booth in the corner, the formal dinner over and the crowd thinning out. Liam was slightly drunk on success, and the 2 glasses of wine he wasn't used to, more open than usual. "I'm glad you both came," he said, looking between Michael and Rachel. "It feels right, somehow, having you both here." We're proud of you," Rachel said, and Michael nodded agreement. "I know I've been difficult about this whole thing," Liam continued, his words slightly loose, "about letting you in, about figuring out what we are to each other. But I want you to know I'm trying. It's hard, and sometimes I still get angry about everything that didn't happen, but I'm trying." "We know," Michael said, "and we appreciate it." "Do you think—" Liam paused, seeming to gather courage. "Do you think it's possible to build something real from this? Something that isn't just based on biology or guilt or obligation?" Michael and Rachel exchanged a glance, a moment of parental unity that felt both foreign and natural. "I think we're already building it," Rachel said. "It might not look like a traditional family, but it's ours, and that's enough." Liam nodded, something settling in his expression. "Okay, good. Because I want you in my life, Michael, both of you. I want to figure out how to make this work." It wasn't a declaration of love or a resolution of all their complicated history, but it was progress, real and hard-won. Michael felt tears threatening and blinked them back, not wanting to embarrass his son in public. Later, as they were leaving, Liam pulled Michael aside. "Thank you for coming tonight, for trying with this whole thing. I know it's not easy. Thank you for giving me the chance, for not writing me off when you had every right to." They stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then Liam surprised Michael by initiating a brief, uncomfortable hug. It was over almost before it started, but the gesture mattered more than Michael could articulate. Driving home, Michael thought about the impossible path that had led him here, from a forgotten summer to a blind date to meeting the son he'd never known. It wasn't redemption, wasn't a happy ending where everything was fixed and forgiven. But it was real, it was progress, and it was enough. For now, it was more than enough. The Monday after the company dinner, Michael was in his office reviewing quarterly reports when his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, and he almost let it go to voicemail before something made him answer. "Mr. Carter? This is Oak Ridge High School. I'm calling about Liam Moore. You're listed as an emergency contact." Michael's heart stopped. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He's fine, physically, but there's been an incident with his mother. Rachel Moore collapsed during school hours. We think it's her heart. She's been transported to Mercy General. Liam asked us to call you since he can't leave his office right now. He's on his way to the hospital." Michael was already grabbing his keys. "Tell him I'm on my way too. Which hospital again?" "Mercy General, emergency entrance." The drive across town was a blur of traffic lights and mounting panic. Michael had exchanged only a handful of conversations with Rachel since that initial dinner, mostly brief check-ins about Liam's well-being. They'd established a cordial but distant relationship, 2 people connected by their son but otherwise separate. Now she was in the hospital, and Liam needed him, and Michael realized how much Rachel had come to matter beyond just being Liam's mother. He found Liam in the emergency waiting room, pacing like a caged animal. His son looked younger than his 28 years, fear stripping away the careful composure he usually maintained. "Michael." Liam's voice cracked on the name. "They won't tell me anything yet. She just collapsed, right in the middle of counseling a student. They said something about her heart." Michael put a hand on Liam's shoulder, felt him trembling. "Hey, she's in good hands. Mercy General has an excellent cardiac unit. They'll take care of her." "You don't know that. You can't know that." "You're right, but I'm here, and we're going to wait together, and whatever happens, you're not alone." They sat side by side in uncomfortable plastic chairs, surrounded by the ambient chaos of the emergency room. Liam's leg bounced constantly, a nervous energy that couldn't be contained. Michael wanted to say something comforting, something wise, but every platitude felt hollow in the face of Liam's raw fear. "She's all I've had," Liam said suddenly. "My whole life, it's been me and her. She can't—" I can't lose her. You won't. You don't know that. Liam turned to look at Michael, his eyes red. And even if she's okay this time, what about next time? She's been working herself to death for years. Multiple jobs when I was growing up, long hours at the school now. Her health has never been great, and she never takes care of herself because she's too busy taking care of everyone else. Michael heard the guilt beneath the fear, understood that Liam was blaming himself for his mother's condition. This isn't your fault, isn't it? All those years she struggled to provide for me, all the stress and exhaustion and sacrifice, that takes a toll, Michael. You don't just bounce back from decades of that. Before Michael could respond, a doctor emerged from the treatment area, scanning the waiting room. Family of Rachel Moore? They both stood simultaneously. Liam got there first. I'm her son. How is she? The doctor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficient manner, gestured for them to follow her to a quieter corner. Your mother experienced a cardiac event. We've stabilized her, but she's going to need to stay for observation and undergo some tests. It appears she has an arrhythmia that's been undiagnosed and untreated. Is she going to be okay? Liam's voice was barely above a whisper. With proper treatment and lifestyle changes, yes. But this is serious, Mr. Moore. Left untreated, this condition could have been life-threatening. She's very lucky this happened in a public place where help was immediately available. Can I see her? Soon. We're getting her settled in a room now. I'll have a nurse come get you when she's ready for visitors. The doctor paused, her expression softening. She's going to be frightened and possibly in denial about the seriousness of this. She'll need support to follow through with treatment. After the doctor left, Liam sank back into a chair, the adrenaline clearly draining from him. She's going to hate this. Being dependent, needing help. She spent my entire life being the strong one. Then it's your turn to be strong for her. I don't know how to do that. Sure you do. You show up, you're present. You do what needs to be done even when it's hard. Michael sat down next to him. Sound familiar? Liam managed a weak smile. Is that what you've been doing? With me? Trying to, anyway. They waited another 40 minutes before a nurse came to take them to Rachel's room. She was propped up in bed, looking smaller and more vulnerable than Michael had ever seen her. The hospital gown, the monitors, the IV, all of it stripped away her usual composure. Liam, her voice was hoarse but steady. I'm fine, this is all ridiculous. I just got dizzy, that's all. Mom, you collapsed. Your heart stopped working properly. That's not just dizzy. Rachel's eyes moved past Liam to where Michael stood in the doorway. You called him? The school called me. I'm listed as an emergency contact, apparently. Liam did that without asking me. But there was no real anger in her tone, just exhaustion. Can I come in? Michael asked. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. Michael entered the room but kept his distance, not wanting to intrude on their space. Liam had pulled a chair close to the bed and was holding his mother's hand, his earlier fear transmuted into fierce protectiveness. The doctor said you have an arrhythmia, Liam said, that you're going to need treatment and monitoring and probably medication. When were you going to mention you've been having heart problems? I wasn't having heart problems. I was having stress. Everyone has stress. Mom, Liam, I'm 52 years old and I know my own body. I've been tired, that's all. Working too much maybe, but nothing serious. You collapsed at work. That's serious. They argued back and forth, Liam trying to make his mother understand the severity of the situation, Rachel deflecting and minimizing. Michael watched the dynamic, saw the role reversal happening, the child becoming the parent resisting the shift in power. Finally, Michael spoke up. Rachel, I know we don't know each other well, but for what it's worth, you scared the hell out of your son today. And he needs you to take this seriously, not for your sake, but for his. Rachel looked at him, something shifting in her expression. You don't get to tell me what to do, Michael. You're right. I don't. But I can tell you what I see. A woman who spent her entire adult life taking care of everyone else and has no practice accepting help. And a son who's terrified of losing the only parent he's ever really had. The words hung in the room. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. She blinked away quickly. I'm tired, she said. I've been tired for 30 years. And now I'm supposed to add doctor's appointments and medications and lifestyle changes to everything else I'm barely managing? No, Liam said firmly. You're supposed to let me help. You're supposed to actually rest instead of working yourself into the ground. You're supposed to accept that you can't do everything alone anymore. I've always done everything alone. Well, now you don't have to. Liam's voice cracked. Please, Mom, let me help. Let us help. The us startled all three of them. Liam looked at Michael, seemed to realize what he'd said, and didn't take it back. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was small and defeated. I don't know how to not be the one in charge, the one who handles things. Then learn, Michael said gently. Let Liam take some of the weight. Let the people who care about you actually help. Over the next few days, a new rhythm established itself. Rachel was kept in the hospital for observation and testing, and Liam practically lived there, showing up before work and staying until visiting hours ended. Michael came too, bringing coffee and food that actually tasted like something, sitting with Liam during the long stretches when Rachel was sleeping or undergoing procedures. It was during one of these waiting periods that Danny showed up, having apparently decided on his own that he needed to meet his half-brother properly. Dad said you've been here every day, Danny announced, dropping into a chair next to Liam with the casual confidence of 16. Figured you could use some company that isn't ancient. Liam looked startled, then amused. You're Danny. And you're Liam. This is weird, right? Us being brothers? Extremely weird. Cool. Want to get cafeteria food that probably sucks? Dad's been in with your mom for like an hour, and I'm bored. Michael watched his two sons walk off together, something tight in his chest loosening. He'd worried about how they'd interact, whether resentment or awkwardness would make connection impossible. But Danny had simply bulldozed through the complexity with teenage directness, and Liam had responded with what looked like genuine warmth. In Rachel's room, she was awake and watching the monitors with the expression of someone trying to decode a foreign language. The boys just went to get food, Michael said. Danny showed up unannounced. I saw him through the window. He looks like you. He acts like me too, which is both gratifying and concerning. Michael sat in the chair Liam had vacated. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck. The doctors keep using words like chronic and management and lifestyle modification. Apparently I can't just ignore this and hope it goes away. Shocking. Rachel actually smiled. You know, when I set up that blind date, I never imagined we'd end up here. With you sitting in my hospital room making sarcastic comments while our sons bond over terrible cafeteria food. Life is strange. That's an understatement. Rachel shifted in the bed, wincing. Michael, I need to ask you something. If something happens to me, if this gets worse, or if there are complications, will you look out for Liam? Nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, he's an adult. He can take care of himself. But he's alone. I'm all he has. Or I was, before you came into the picture. Her eyes were intense, urgent. Promise me if something happens, you won't disappear. That you'll be there for him. Rachel, promise me. Michael met her gaze, understood that this was important, that she needed this reassurance. I promise. Nothing's going to happen to you, but if it does, I'll be there for Liam, for as long as he'll let me. Okay. Rachel relaxed slightly. Okay, good. But you're going to be fine. You're going to follow the treatment plan, let Liam help you, and be around to annoy him for decades to come. I don't annoy him. You're his mother. Of course you annoy him. That's the job description. They fell into easier conversation, talking about Liam's childhood, stories Michael had missed. Rachel told him about Liam's obsession with dinosaurs at age 6, his terrible middle school poetry phase, the time he tried to build a robot and nearly electrocuted himself. Each story was a gift and a reminder of all Michael had lost, but he listened greedily, trying to build a picture of the child who'd grown into the man he was getting to know. When Liam and Danny returned, they were laughing about something, the sound carrying down the hallway before them. They entered still mid-conversation, the awkwardness between them already dissolving. Liam was telling me about this coding camp he runs, Danny said to Michael. Sounds pretty cool. He said I could volunteer next summer if I want. You're interested in coding now? Michael asked, surprised. I'm interested in not being completely useless. Figured I should learn something practical. Danny turned to Rachel. Hi, I'm Danny, Michael's other kid. Sorry for barging in. Don't apologize for visiting someone in the hospital. That's kind. Rachel studied him with the assessing gaze of a school counselor. You look like your father. Everyone says that. It's kind of annoying. What? He has my personality, though, Michael interjected, which is probably punishment for something. The four of them stayed there for another hour, the conversation flowing more naturally than it had any right to. Danny told stories about his basketball team. Liam shared work frustrations. Rachel occasionally interjected with maternal corrections or additions to Liam's stories. Michael watched it all, this strange assembled family that had no business working, but somehow did. Rachel was released from the hospital 3 days later with strict instructions about medication, follow-up appointments, and stress reduction. Liam insisted she stay with him rather than go back to her apartment alone, and Rachel was too tired to argue. Michael helped move some of her things, navigating the odd intimacy of being in her personal space, seeing the life she'd built. Her apartment was modest but warm, filled with photos of Liam through the years and books that suggested a mind constantly seeking knowledge. Michael found himself pausing at a photo of teenage Liam, maybe 15 or 16, gangly and awkward, but with that same serious expression. That was his junior year, Rachel said from the doorway. Right after he got accepted into the advanced CS program at school, he was so proud but trying to act like it was no big deal. He looks happy. He was. That was a good year. Rachel moved into the room, began sorting through which clothes to pack. There were hard years, too. Years when I wasn't sure we'd make it, when the money ran out before the month did, when I was working 3 jobs and barely saw him, but we survived. You did more than survive. You raised an incredible person. We got lucky. He was an easy kid, mostly. Smart enough to entertain himself, mature enough to understand when I explained why we couldn't afford things. Some kids would have resented the poverty, the absence of a father, all of it. Liam just adapted. Kids shouldn't have to adapt to that level of hardship. No, Rachel agreed. They shouldn't. But life isn't fair, and we do what we have to do. She folded a sweater with careful precision. You know what the worst part was? Not the money struggles or the exhaustion. It was the loneliness. Being the only parent, having no one to share decisions with or celebrate victories with, or just vent to at the end of a hard day. I had my family eventually after they came around, but it wasn't the same as having a partner in it. Michael heard the implicit accusation beneath the words, deserved or not. I'm sorry I wasn't there, that you had to carry all of that alone. I know you are, and I know you didn't choose to be absent, but knowing that doesn't erase those years, Michael. It doesn't give me back the support I needed and didn't have. No, it doesn't. They finished packing in silence, the weight of history heavy between them. When they got back to Liam's apartment, he'd set up the guest room for his mother, clearing out the exercise equipment and computer parts that had been colonizing the space. It's not much, he said apologetically, but it's comfortable enough for a few weeks. A few weeks? Rachel protested. I'll be fine to go home in a few days. The doctor said you need rest and monitoring. You're staying here where I can keep an eye on you. Liam, I'm not an invalid. No, you're a stubborn woman with a heart condition who will absolutely ignore medical advice if left to her own devices. Liam crossed his arms. You're staying. End of discussion. Michael watched the negotiation with amusement. This was a new dynamic. Liam taking charge, Rachel being forced into dependence. It clearly made both of them uncomfortable, but there was affection underneath the bickering. Over the following weeks, Michael found himself pulled deeper into the orbit of Liam's household. He'd stop by after work to check on Rachel, often staying for dinner. Danny came too sometimes, the four of them sharing meals that felt almost like family dinners, though no one acknowledged the elephant in the room, that this strange assembled unit was starting to feel like something real. One evening, about 3 weeks after Rachel's hospitalization, Michael arrived to find her arguing with Liam about going back to work. The doctor cleared me for light duty, Rachel insisted. I can handle desk work and scheduled counseling sessions. Light duty means light duty, not your usual 60-hour weeks. I don't work 60-hour weeks. Mom, I've seen your calendar. You absolutely work 60-hour weeks. Someone has to advocate for those kids. Do you know how many of them are dealing with impossible situations at home? How many need someone to actually see them and care? And that someone doesn't have to be you every single time. Michael cleared his throat from the doorway. Am I interrupting? Yes, Liam said. No, Rachel said simultaneously. We're debating whether Mom is physically capable of moderation, Liam explained. She's losing. I'm not losing, I'm strategically pausing my argument. Michael set down the groceries he'd brought, a habit he'd fallen into, making sure Liam's fridge had actual food instead of just takeout containers. What if you compromise? Go back part-time for a few weeks, see how you handle it, then reassess. That's what I suggested, Liam said. That's what he suggested, Rachel admitted. But part-time means I'm not there when kids need me. Or it means you're alive and healthy enough to be there for them long-term instead of working yourself into an early grave. Michael kept his tone gentle but firm. Rachel, I know this is hard, but you collapsing doesn't help anyone. She looked between them, her son and the father who'd missed everything but was here now, and something in her expression softened. Fine, part-time. 4 weeks, then we reassess. But I get to choose which cases I handle. Deal, Liam said quickly, before she could change her mind. Later, after Rachel had gone to bed and Liam was cleaning up the kitchen, Michael helped dry dishes. Thank you for backing me up, Liam said. She listens to you in ways she doesn't listen to me. I think she just doesn't want to fight two people at once. Maybe. Liam was quiet for a moment, focusing on scrubbing a particularly stubborn pot. Can I ask you something? Of course. How do you do it? With Danny, I mean. How do you balance protecting him with letting him make his own choices? How do you know when to push and when to back off? Michael recognized the question for what it was. Liam trying to navigate his new role as Rachel's caretaker, struggling with the same challenges Michael had faced as a parent for 16 years. Honestly, you don't know. You make your best guess and hope you're not completely screwing it up. Sometimes you push too hard and damage the relationship. Sometimes you don't push hard enough and they make mistakes you could have prevented. There's no formula. That's not particularly comforting. No, but it's true. Being a parent or being in a parental role, it's just constant uncertainty and hoping the love is enough to make up for all the ways you mess it up. Liam set down the pot, turned to face Michael directly. Is that what this has been for you? With me? Constant uncertainty? Every single day. I wake up wondering if I'm pushing too hard for a relationship you don't want, or not pushing hard enough to build something real. I second guess every text, every conversation, every attempt to be part of your life, and I have no idea if I'm doing any of it right. You are, Liam said quietly. Doing it right, I mean. Most of the time, anyway. You show up when you say you will. You don't make promises you can't keep. You're honest even when it's uncomfortable. That's more than I expected. But less than you deserved. Maybe. But it's what we have, and I'm learning to be okay with that. Liam dried his hands on a towel. I'm glad you're here. I know I don't say that enough, but I am. These past weeks with Mom, I don't think I could have handled it alone. You wouldn't have been alone. You have friends, colleagues. It's not the same. Friends are great, but this, having family who shows up, it's different. Liam paused. Danny's good for you, you know. He reminds you not to take everything so seriously. He reminds me that I'm old and out of touch, mostly. That too. Liam smiled. But he also clearly loves you and feels secure in your relationship. That's not nothing. You built that over 16 years of showing up. Michael heard what Liam wasn't saying, that 16 years of presence for Danny highlighted the 28 years of absence for Liam. It was the fundamental inequality at the heart of their relationship, the wound that time couldn't fully heal. I wish I could give you those years back, Michael said. I wish I could go back and somehow know, somehow be there. But I can't. All I can offer is now and whatever future you'll let me be part of. I know, and I'm trying to let that be enough. Liam started putting away the clean dishes. My therapist says I need to grieve what didn't happen before I can fully appreciate what is happening. That I'm allowed to be sad about missing out on having a father growing up while also being glad you're here now. That sounds like good advice. Yeah, well, therapy is expensive but occasionally useful. Liam closed the cabinet, turned back to Michael. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others. Some days I look at you and just see this stranger who shares my DNA. Other days, I can almost imagine what it might have been like if you'd been there all along. And which kind of day is today? Liam considered. Today you're Michael who showed up at the hospital when Mom got sick, who helps with groceries and backs me up when I'm trying to take care of her, who's slowly becoming someone I can count on. That's not nothing. No, Michael agreed, his throat tight with emotion. That's not nothing. They finished the dishes in companionable silence. When Michael left that night, Liam walked him to the door, a gesture that had become ritual over the past weeks. Hey, Liam said as Michael was leaving. Next weekend, Danny mentioned wanting to check out that new gaming place downtown. You should come. Make it a family thing. The casual way he said family thing made Michael's heart skip. I'd like that. Okay, I'll text you the details. Driving home, Michael thought about all the small moments that were adding up to something larger. Shared meals, grocery runs, hospital vigils, discussions about Rachel's health and Danny's future and Liam's work. These were the mundane building blocks of family, the ordinary intimacies that created connection. He'd missed Liam's childhood, would never get back those foundational years. But maybe, just maybe, they were building something new, not a replacement for what should have been, but something real and valuable in its own right. When he got home, Danny was still awake, sprawled on the couch with homework spread around him in organized chaos. How's Liam's mom? Better. Arguing about going back to work, which is actually a good sign. And Liam? Managing, learning how to be the parent in the relationship, which is hard. Danny looked up from his math homework. Like you had to do with Grandma when Grandpa died. Michael was surprised his son remembered that. Danny had only been 8 when Michael's father passed away, when Michael had to step into the role of managing his mother's grief and practical affairs. Yeah, kind of like that. It's weird when the roles reverse. Is it weird for you, with Liam, I mean? You're trying to be his dad, but he's already grown up. Incredibly weird, but also important, worth doing even when it's uncomfortable. I like him, Danny said. He's different than I expected, quieter, more serious, but he's cool once he relaxes. I'm glad you two are getting along. We're brothers. We're supposed to get along. Danny said it like it was obvious, like the biology of it automatically created relationship. Michael envied his son's simple certainty. That weekend, the three of them went to the gaming arcade Danny had found. It was aggressively loud and bright, full of teenagers and 20-somethings competing at various virtual challenges. Michael felt ancient within minutes, but tried to hide it. Liam was surprisingly competitive at the racing games, trash-talking Danny with a casualness that suggested he was relaxing into the dynamic. Danny gave back as good as he got, the two of them falling into easy banter that made Michael's chest tight with joy and grief in equal measure. At one point, as they were taking a break and consuming overpriced pizza, Danny asked Liam about his work. It's mostly back-end development, right? What's that actually mean? Liam launched into an explanation that quickly became too technical for Michael to follow, but Danny listened with genuine interest, asking smart questions. Watching them, Michael saw what might have been, two brothers growing up together, the older one teaching the younger, the bond of shared childhood creating automatic connection. But they hadn't grown up together. That wasn't their story. Their story was this: meeting as near strangers, finding connection despite the gap, building something from nothing. As they were leaving, Liam's phone rang. He glanced at it, his expression shifting to concern. It's Mom. Hey, what's wrong? Michael couldn't hear Rachel's side of the conversation, but he watched Liam's face pale. Okay, no, don't move. We're coming right now. Liam hung up, was already heading for the door. She's having chest pains, says they're probably nothing, but I'm not taking chances. They rushed to Liam's apartment, Michael driving faster than was probably wise. When they arrived, Rachel was sitting on the couch, looking scared and trying to hide it. I'm fine. This is ridiculous. You didn't need to race over here. You're having chest pains 3 weeks after a cardiac event. We absolutely needed to race over here. Liam was already grabbing her purse and coat. We're going to the ER. Liam, Mom, please, just let me take you to get checked out, please. The fear in his voice must have penetrated Rachel's resistance. She nodded, let him help her up. Michael drove them to the hospital. Danny in the back seat holding Rachel's hand. Liam in the passenger seat radiating barely controlled panic. It turned out to be a false alarm, anxiety and muscle strain rather than another cardiac event. But the incident shook all of them, highlighted how fragile Rachel's health still was. Afterward, sitting in the hospital cafeteria while Rachel underwent observation just to be safe, Liam put his head in his hands. I can't do this. I can't watch her go through this. Can't handle the constant worry that she's going to collapse again or that next time will be worse. Yes, you can, Michael said, because you have to. Because she needs you. What if I'm not enough? What if she needs more than I can give? Michael put a hand on Liam's shoulder, felt him trembling. Then you ask for help. You lean on the people who care about you. You don't carry it alone. Liam looked up at him, eyes red. Will you help? If she needs more than I can manage, will you be there? Of course, whatever you need. Danny, who'd been quietly observing, spoke up. We're family, right? That's what family does. Shows up when things are hard. Liam looked at Danny, then at Michael, and something in his expression cracked. Yeah, I guess it is. They sat together in the fluorescent brightness of the hospital cafeteria, 3 generations trying to figure out how to be a family, despite missing most of the usual foundations. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what any of them would have chosen, but it was real, and it was theirs. And in that moment, it was enough. Rachel's second health scare became a turning point in ways none of them anticipated. In the weeks that followed, the fragile connections they'd been building solidified into something more substantial. Michael found himself at Liam's apartment 3 or 4 evenings a week, often with Danny in tow, the 4 of them falling into routines that felt simultaneously strange and natural. Rachel's return to work remained part-time, though she chafed against the restriction constantly. Liam monitored her schedule with the vigilance of a probation officer, and she oscillated between gratitude and irritation at his hovering. Michael served as mediator, helping them navigate the uncomfortable role reversal with patience neither of them possessed naturally. It was during one of these mediations, on a cold January evening almost 6 months after that initial blind date, that everything came to a head. I have to go to a conference next month, Rachel announced over dinner, her tone deliberately casual in a way that immediately raised suspicions. School counselor thing in Denver, 3 days. Liam set down his fork. What kind of conference? Professional development, workshops on trauma-informed counseling, updates on college admissions processes, that sort of thing. Mom, the doctor said I could resume normal activities. A work conference is a normal activity. Denver is at high altitude. My heart is fine. I'm on medication. I'm following all the restrictions. I'm doing everything they told me to do. Rachel's voice had that edge it got when she was fighting for independence. I can't put my entire life on hold indefinitely. Michael watched the argument escalate, saw Liam's protective instinct battling against Rachel's need for autonomy. Finally, he interrupted. What if someone went with you to the conference? That way you're not alone if anything happens, but you're still able to do your job. Both of them turned to look at him. I don't need a babysitter, Rachel said. And I can't take 3 days off work on short notice, Liam added. I wasn't suggesting Liam. Michael kept his voice even. I have some flexibility with my schedule. I could go. Separate hotel rooms, you do your conference things. I work remotely during the day and we meet up for meals. That way you have backup if you need it, but you're not being hovered over constantly. The suggestion landed in silence. Rachel and Liam exchanged a look Michael couldn't quite interpret. That's actually not a terrible idea, Liam said slowly. I don't need supervision, Rachel protested, but her resistance sounded half-hearted. It's not supervision, it's insurance for my peace of mind, if nothing else. Liam looked at Michael. You'd really be willing to do that? Of course, if Rachel's okay with it. Rachel was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with pride and practicality. Separate rooms, she said finally, and you don't attend any of the conference sessions. I don't want my colleagues thinking I need an escort. Completely separate. I'll be a tourist, visit museums, pretend to understand modern art. Okay then. Rachel picked up her fork with an air of forced normalcy. I guess you're coming to Denver. Danny, who'd been watching the entire exchange with barely concealed amusement, spoke up. Are you guys going to talk about the fact that this is basically you two going on a trip together? It's not a trip together, Rachel said quickly. It's a work conference with adjacent accommodations, Michael clarified. Sure, Dad, whatever you say. The conference was scheduled for mid-February, giving Michael 3 weeks to overthink the arrangement. He told himself it was purely practical. Someone needed to be there in case Rachel's health issues flared up, and Liam couldn't take the time off work. The fact that he found himself looking forward to the trip, to spending uninterrupted time with Rachel, was irrelevant. Probably. Liam seemed amused by the whole thing. You know she's going to try to ditch you the minute you land, right? Mom hates being monitored. I'm aware. But she also knows you'll kill her if something happens and I wasn't there. True. Liam was helping Michael pick out a new jacket for the trip, an activity that felt domestic and comfortable in a way that still surprised Michael. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you have feelings for her? For my mom? Michael fumbled the jacket he was holding. Where is this coming from? I have eyes. I see how you are around her. Careful, protective, but also something else. And she's different with you than she is with other people. Less guarded. But, Liam, your mother and I have a complicated history. That's not an answer. Michael sat down on the bench in the clothing store, tried to find words for something he'd barely let himself acknowledge. I care about her, not just as your mother, but as a person. She's remarkable, strong and stubborn and brilliant. And yes, there's something there that might be attraction or might just be shared investment in you. I don't know. I haven't let myself think about it too much. Why not? Because it would complicate an already complicated situation. Because I don't know if she'd ever see me as anything other than the guy who got her pregnant and disappeared even though I didn't know. Because getting involved romantically with my son's mother seems like a recipe for disaster. Or it seems like two people who care about each other and share a son figuring out if there's something there worth exploring. Liam stood, grabbed the jacket Michael had been considering. For what it's worth, I think you should let yourself think about it. Life's too short to avoid things just because they're complicated. The conversation stayed with Michael through the following weeks. He found himself noticing things about Rachel he'd overlooked before. The way she laughed at Danny's terrible jokes, the fierce intelligence in her eyes when she talked about her students, the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. They'd been orbiting each other for months, connected by Liam but increasingly developing their own rapport. What would it mean to acknowledge that something was shifting between them? The Denver trip arrived before Michael had resolved any of his questions. They flew out early on a Friday morning, Rachel armed with conference materials and stern independence, Michael with a laptop and a guidebook to Denver museums he had no real interest in visiting. Their hotel was nice without being ostentatious, the kind of place that catered to business travelers with comfortable beds and reliable Wi-Fi. True to the agreement, they had separate rooms on different floors. Rachel disappeared into her conference almost immediately, leaving Michael to wander the city alone. That evening, they met for dinner at a restaurant near the convention center. Rachel looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that came from performing social competence all day when you'd rather be anywhere else. How was it? Michael asked after they'd ordered. Informative. Overwhelming. There's so much new research on adolescent psychology and trauma response, and I'm supposed to somehow integrate it all while managing a caseload of 300 students with about 30 minutes per crisis. She rubbed her temples. I love my job, but sometimes the gap between what we know kids need and what resources we actually have is just depressing. You do more for those kids than you probably realize. Or not enough. There's always more that needs doing. Rachel looked at him, seemed to really see him for the first time that evening. How was your day? Did you find exciting tourist things? I went to an art museum and confirmed that I don't understand modern art, walked around downtown, worked from a coffee shop that charged $7 for a latte. Sounds thrilling. It was actually kind of nice, being nowhere, being no one, just existing without any particular obligations. Rachel nodded, understanding flickering across her face. I remember what that was like. Before Liam, when I was just a kid with a whole life ahead of me and no idea how it would all turn out. Do you regret it? How it turned out? No, never. But I do sometimes wonder what might have been different if... She stopped, shook her head. Never mind, that's pointless. If I'd known? If I'd been there? If circumstances had been different in 1,000 small ways, but they weren't, and we are where we are. Rachel picked at her food. Can I ask you something? When you found out about Liam, what was your first emotion, gut reaction, before you had time to process? Michael thought back to that night in the bistro, to Rachel's words cutting through his comfortable life. Terror. Just pure terror that I'd missed something irreplaceable and there was no way to get it back. Not anger? At me for not trying harder to find you? No, never anger at you. Some at my mother for not passing along messages, some at the universe for the timing of it all. But you were 16 and pregnant and alone. You did what you could with what you had. I could have tried harder, Rachel said quietly, after that first year. Once I was more stable, once Liam was a toddler and I had my feet under me a bit, I could have hired someone to track you down, could have pushed harder to find you, but I didn't. Why not? Pride maybe, fear of rejection. By then I'd built this narrative where I was strong and independent and didn't need anyone. Admitting I wanted you involved would have meant admitting I couldn't do it alone, and I was so determined to prove I could. She met his eyes. I'm sorry. For not trying harder. For letting my pride matter more than Liam's right to know his father. The apology caught Michael completely off guard. Rachel, you don't owe me an apology. You did an incredible thing raising him alone. I'm the one who... You're the one who didn't know. We've established that. But I'm the one who made the choice to stop trying to tell you, and I need you to know I'm sorry for that choice, even if I understand why I made it. They sat with that acknowledgement, with the honesty of it. The restaurant buzzed around them, other diners, waitstaff, the ambient noise of people living their normal lives. Michael felt like they were in a bubble separate from all of it, having a conversation they'd needed to have for months. I forgive you, he said, for whatever part of this you think you need forgiveness for. And I'm sorry, too, for being unreachable, for not somehow knowing anyway, for all the ways circumstances kept me from being there. We're quite a pair, apologizing for things mostly outside our control. Better than never saying it at all. They finished dinner with lighter conversation, but the weight of the earlier exchange hung between them in a way that felt significant. When they got back to the hotel, Rachel surprised Michael by asking if he wanted to get a drink at the hotel bar. I thought you'd be exhausted, he said. I am, but I'm also too wired to sleep. Conference brain. Too much information, too much forced socializing. I need to decompress. The bar was quiet, just a few other guests scattered at tables. They found a corner booth and ordered drinks neither of them particularly wanted. Tell me about your marriage, Rachel said after their drinks arrived. To Danny's mother. Liam mentioned it didn't work out. Caroline, we met in college, dated for a few years, got married right after graduation. She was smart and ambitious, and I thought we wanted the same things. Michael swirled his whiskey, watching the amber liquid catch the light. Turns out we didn't. She wanted to travel, pursue her career without interruption. I wanted stability, family. When she got pregnant, we both tried to convince ourselves it was what we wanted. Lasted until Danny was 5 before we admitted we'd made a mistake. That must have been hard. The divorce itself was actually one of the easier parts. We were both reasonable about it, put Danny first. She moved to Portland for work. We do alternating holidays and summer weeks. He seems okay with it. Michael paused. But there's this guilt, you know? That I gave him a broken home, that he doesn't have what I always imagined kids should have. 2 parents who love each other, stability, the whole picture. No kid has the whole picture. They all have something, divorce, conflict, financial stress, whatever. You give Danny presence and consistency and love. That's more than a lot of kids get from intact families. I gave him presents, Michael echoed, just not to Liam. We're not doing that tonight, Rachel said firmly. Not the guilt spiral about what didn't happen. We've covered that ground enough. Then what are we doing? Rachel was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider the question seriously. I think we're figuring out who we are to each other outside of being Liam's parents. We're two people who shared something intense almost 30 years ago, who got a second chance to know each other under the strangest circumstances, and who are trying to figure out what comes next. And what do you think comes next? I don't know. That's what scares me. Rachel took a sip of her wine. I've been alone for so long, Michael. I've built this life where I'm independent and self-sufficient and don't need anyone. Letting people in, letting you in specifically, it feels dangerous. Dangerous how? Dangerous like I might start to depend on you, like I might let myself believe this thing we're building, whatever it is permanent, and then it won't be. I've survived a lot, but I don't know if I could survive that kind of disappointment again. Michael heard the fear beneath her words, understood that this was about more than just him. This was about every time she'd been let down, every promise broken, every support system that had failed her. I can't promise nothing will go wrong, he said carefully. I can't guarantee this all works out perfectly, but I can promise I'm not going anywhere. That I'm committed to being in Liam's life, and by extension in yours for as long as you'll have me. That whatever we're building, I'm building it with the intention of it lasting. Intentions aren't the same as outcomes. No, but there's something. They're a choice to try, to invest, to care what happens. Michael reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but close. Rachel, I know I missed almost 30 years. I know I wasn't there when you needed someone, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. She looked at his hand, at the small gap between them, and something in her expression shifted. Slowly, tentatively, she closed that gap, her fingers brushing against his. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. They sat like that for a while, hands barely touching, the connection electric despite its lightness. Around them, the bar began to empty as late evening tipped into night. Finally, Rachel pulled back, the moment broken, but not forgotten. I should get some sleep. Another full day of conference tomorrow. Yeah, of course. They walked to the elevator together, stood in slightly awkward silence as it climbed floors. When it stopped at Rachel's floor, she paused before getting out. Thank you for coming on this trip, for being here even though you didn't have to be. I wanted to be here. I know, that's what makes it matter.